Yeah, welcome everybody. It's really exciting to be here. I can't quite believe that we're already here at the sort of showcase of Train the Trainer 2. So I probably know most people, but there might be some people that I don't know. So for those of you I don't know, I'm Mary Matheson. I'm an immersive director, and I'm also the course director of Royal Holloway's MA in Immersive Storytelling. And now I'm also leading up this Train the Trainer program. I took over from Amanda Murphy, who kicked off. She sort of led Train the Trainer 1 and also kicked off Train the Trainer 2. We're incredibly lucky to have Mark Flanagan from Epic Games here. He's got his internet going, and he's going to do a keynote speech in a little minute. But first of all, I just wanted to talk to you guys and just tell you a little bit about some of the initial findings that we have found from the reports from Train the Trainer 2. We've had some pretty exciting results. So I'm just going to share my screen with you guys and just show you some of the results that we found. So here we go. Just checking that you can see. I'm just going to make it big. Is that okay? Can you guys see that?
Yep, we can see that.
Cool. So for those of you that don't really know too much about Train the Trainer, it's basically, it's really the only funded program like this in the UK, and actually hazarding a guess, I suspect, globally. And the idea behind it is to build a talent pipeline for immersive production in the UK. And the way that we're going to do that is to train the people that will train the talent. So I want to just give you a quick glance at some of the findings from both the cohorts. We had cohort 1. Actually, I was part of one of the teams from that initial cohort. And between the two, there are 14 projects overall. So from actually 14 academic institutions. So from cohort 1, I just thought it would be interesting to look back at this cohort initially. You can see there were 28 industry collaborators. The number of academic collaborators was 18. And at the end of that project, there were 22 courses that were modified or created. During the actual Train the Trainer project, over 250 students took part in it, you know, with the various teams, and the trainers that took part, there were 130. And eventually, once these courses were created and modified, that was going to benefit 658 students. So that was pretty good for our first group. There were 6 projects and from different universities, and they sort of varied between live performance and immersive production, using augmented reality to enhance teaching. There was another one with Bath Spa University, where they created a sort of framework on how to market immersive productions, and that's gone on to be used. Actually, they've set up a company to promote this and for production companies to use. So in Train the Trainer 2 cohort, these are the universities that took part. And there were 8 with Abertay and Hearts. They joined this cohort because they had a bit of a delay because of COVID. And they'll tell you a little bit more about that. And I'll tell you a bit more about the projects and what's sort of involved with them in a little minute. So these were the outcomes, which are really exciting to sort of look at all of these statistics right across. So looking at the departments that you know have been involved and that will be involved in future courses, there are nearly 60. There was a lot of industry collaboration. Again, that was sort of nearly doubled, 41. You can see 77 academics were involved or trainers, 28 new or modified courses, and over 200 students took part in the actual program itself. And then really excitingly for us, over 2,000 students are going to actually benefit from these new or modified courses. And actually, I just was talking to Heather, who's part of the Queen Mary University of London group, and I'm sure they'll tell you this in their presentation, but she's just told me that actually they've realized that they're going to spread one of their workshops across a broader group of students, and actually that's going to increase this number by 600. So really exciting results for us. Again, these are really initial, so I'm going to actually be working on a report over the autumn that will look into these and analyze them a bit more, and I'm going to just do a little bit of analysis in a second, but just these are just to give you an initial idea of the results, basically. I think one of the things that's kind of really been exciting, and one of the things that was has been set out from the beginning of Train the Trainer, is the sort of cross-departmental work and projects. So not only with the actual projects themselves, but when it comes to the courses. So 60 different departments and schools are going to be either been involved or will be part of the new courses. And you can see the variation from drama, computer science, really exciting as well. We've got Queen Mary, as I said, who are bringing in a whole new cohort of students from engineering, and not just electrical engineering, which is something that's traditionally been involved with immersive production, but mechanical, electronic, biomedical, just really, really fascinating work. So that's been really exciting, and it's both been exciting for the academics, but also the students. So a lot of feedback that I've sort of read in the reports talks about how the students have really felt that they've benefited from this. And certainly as well in the Royal Holloway report, they spoke about the fact that they felt that the sort of cross-disciplinary aspect of the projects was really important in terms of diversity and bringing people from backgrounds that you might not normally associate with technology or immersive production into this area. So that's been a really exciting part of these projects. The other thing I wanted to highlight, and something that Amanda Murphy spoke to me a bit about once she'd sort of seen the report and some of the statistics, was that industry collaborations have been really, really important and an important part of both the projects themselves, but also looking forwards to the future. So in terms of the projects, it was just really important that we had these industry collaborations so that any of our learnings and any of the work that we've been doing, the research or the development of the projects or the training of the students, it was really important that it was relevant to the industry itself. So from Train the Trainer 1, the team realized that they wanted to really make sure that this was part of Train the Trainer 2 and the projects, and actually it's been incredibly successful, both in terms of the R&D that they've worked on, but also, as I said, in terms of future training. And I know that certainly University of Greenwich is going to talk a bit about their industry collaborations, and I know that looking forward, the work that they've done in terms of workflows is actually really cutting edge in terms of training for virtual production in particular. So that's another area that I'm going to be looking into and that we wanted to highlight as well. So sorry, I think I skipped one. Yeah. So in terms of the courses themselves, basically I've sort of broken down the sort of different kinds of courses that have been developed by these teams, and you can see that there are going to be 7 new modules for undergraduate, postgraduate and postgraduate research courses. So those will be brand new modules, like Royal Holloway are introducing a brand new module that will be for both. Actually, it's going to be across 4 different disciplines. And then 16 current modules or courses have been adapted to include this new immersive production techniques or knowledge or training. Then there'll be 3 new workshops, boot camps and placements for students. Often the placements are going to be with the industry partners. There's 1 online learning course with Future Learn that's being planned. And then boot camps, workshops and workshops for industry. And those are being planned basically to sort of jointly be delivered with industry partners. So again, really exciting results for us in terms of actually the impact on creating these new courses and workshops. And you can see there's a really huge variation, you know, going from undergraduate modules right through to, you know, boot camps and workshops for industry, bringing them into the immersive world. So just a quick overview, you know, ahead of you hearing from the projects themselves. They are covering this time virtual production, immersive audio, rapid prototyping across disciplines, user interaction design, and immersive storytelling and science and health communication, which is a really exciting and kind of innovative new project that's very different from most of the others. So I'm excited for you guys to hear all about that. So without further ado, that's it from me. And I'd really like to really stop sharing. And I'm super excited to have Mark Flanagan here, especially because he's literally flown back from Ireland. He's sorting out his Wi-Fi and actually, you know, but more excitingly and more interestingly, what we really want to hear about is Epic Games and, you know, what they've got planned for the future. And it's such a big part of all of our work. So Mark, thanks ever so much for being here. I'm going to hand over to you.
It is a pleasure. Thank you very much. As I said, apologies in advance if anything goes wrong with my internet. Having flown back from Ireland recently, I'm sure some of you could possibly understand when I refer to Virgin Media as the Ryanair of internet providers. When it works, it's very cheap and it's quite convenient, but when it doesn't, you've got problems. So my name is Mark Flanagan. I work for Epic Games. I'm the education partner manager with Epic Games. So if any of you have any projects you want to talk to me about, please feel free to do that. You can contact me at mark.flanagan@epicgames.com or contact any of the organizers and they'll put you in touch. I am here to help you to realize what you're doing, to help your students, and basically to make sure that all of these industries that use any of our technology get the full use of everything that we can do for you. We do everything for education for free, with the exception of our Epic Mega Grants where we give you money. So it should cost you nothing. And if you have a project which is fundable, we will see what we can do to help you there. I'm going to start now sharing my screen. We have a limited amount of time and lots of very cool things to show you. So let me just get this screen sharing and hopefully it works. Sharing with sound. Okay, share. Let me just give you a bit of background on myself before we get started. I originally studied architecture because obviously my parents didn't believe that animation or filmmaking was a real career. But I went back and studied animation, worked in the games industry in the UK, moved to Australia, worked in education there in various different universities, then started to do work for Pixar online, doing training materials for them, moved to Canada, working training for Double Negative, moved back to the UK to work for Industrial Light and Magic, and currently working for Epic Games. So I've worked across a very wide range of industries that use all of these kind of interactive technologies. I'm going to start off by showing you our latest spring showreel for students, because you all have students, you all have people who are working in various different fields that we need more of your content. We have a lot of work from games, we have a lot of work from architecture, for example, but we'd like to have more more virtual reality, more mixed reality, more of that kind of content. Let's just show you what we have for the current reel. I'm working on compiling the new reel at the moment.
Stronger every day.
So every year, the quality and standard of this keeps on improving. We've just seen the entrance for the Rookies Awards. There's a special page for Unreal Games entries there. It's absolutely stunning. It's the kind of work which you would expect from extremely high-level professionals at this point. Let's just have a little bit of a background on who Epic Games are. Epic Games was founded by Tim Sweeney in his parents' garage about 29 or 30 years ago. And it was called Epic Mega Games originally because Tim Sweeney didn't want people to think that he was basically a teenager working out of his parents' garage. It's grown since to be a global firm with 35 offices worldwide, and we're pushing towards 3,000 employees now with a couple of more acquisitions which we've made in the recent past around the UK and in Europe. And we keep on winning awards. Well, we don't win many awards, we win some, but the people who win awards are the people who use our tools. And we're very, very proud, standing on the shoulders of the people that use our tools to do all of their very cool things. The reason why we're able to do so much for free for education and for the film industry in general, because the film industry and any industry that isn't actually working in games, the tool is free. When I say free, it's free as in you don't have to pay for it. The games industry pays for it, but the film industry, even if you're working for a major film studio, it's free. In architecture, it's free. In most other industries, it's free. Unless you're making something which is an interactive experience, which is game-like, it's free. And it's free for all education. The reason why we can do that is because of Fortnite. Fortnite is built using our tools, using the Unreal Engine. And it's one of the reasons why the Unreal Engine is actually so robust. We make the biggest game in the world using the same tools that we actually share with you. And that means that it has to work. We don't keep a special version for ourselves and give you a cut down version. We give you exactly the same version we're using for this. And we give you the source code and we give you all the documentation. And we use a process we refer to as dog fooding. We will actually test everything in advance of giving it to you. So we taste it, we make sure everything is nutritious, and then we share it with you. If it isn't ready for release, you don't get it. So Fortnite has grown from just being a game into having online events, which is one of the things that we're going to talk about at some point, moving towards a metaverse, which I'm sure you've heard about. Facebook have started to speak about it recently, as have Apple. The metaverse is the kind of world of Ready Player One. Metaverse is a term that comes from Neil Stephenson's book, Snow Crash, which I think was 1980 something or other. I remember reading it, it was absolutely amazing. But the idea is have consistent, persistent, personal online worlds which are in virtual reality. The in-game events, which we've actually had in Fortnite, are a small glimpse of what the metaverse is heading towards. So with Travis Scott event, for instance, we had the largest concert in the world, 27 million people attending. Over a day, we had several different versions of it running. It's where things are going to head to. It's not just for games, it's for games, it's for entertainment, it's for social media. It will become the new internet. It will become a very new and different way of experiencing things. We want to be the people who help this to happen. We have certain views about it being more open, extensible, and everybody should be able to make their own content. We don't want it to be driven by gambling or by advertising. We want it to be more or less owned by the people. We want to be the people who help it to happen. We want to build the tools and the back end for it. We're certainly not doing it entirely for altruistic reasons. At the same time, we don't want it to turn into what the internet has turned into. It's an aspiration. We'll see where we go. So what Epic Games does at our core is always the Unreal Engine. Then we have publishing side, which makes the Fortnite and Robo Recall, all these other things. Then we have a licensing side where we license our tools to other people. Even though in non-games, it's still free for you, you still have to adhere to our license and the terms of our license before you actually use the product. Read the license or get a lawyer to read it to make sure you're not doing anything illegal. In the games industry, we have a licensing deal where if you sell, I think it's $1 million worth, we start to charge you. So that's not a bad deal. You basically get the experience and the use of an engine which has been around for more than 20 years for free until you make your first $1 million. I'm going to just show you a bit of a preview here of Unreal Engine 5. Currently, the version which many of you will have had experience of will be UE4, or 4.27 is coming out very soon. 4.27 is a major release for virtual production, so it's the thing which you'll probably be using in the near future for virtual production. It's still not quite ready. It's a new preview release coming out soon, but Unreal Engine 5 is a whole new world. It's a whole new paradigm of how game engines and virtual production will actually work. That's a very short teaser. I highly advise you to have a look at some of our materials online. The high points of what we're doing with UE5 are really, really groundbreaking in terms of game engines and interactivity. The first part of it is a technology called Nanite, which is virtualized geometry. It allows us to use film quality assets, and I've worked, as I said, with Industrial Light and Magic, for example. So we have billions of triangles. Games traditionally had to have maybe a million, maybe less triangles. Now we can actually have the same assets being used in game as are being used in film. We had techniques which we had to use in games, for instance, using normal maps and various other types of shaders to simulate higher res geometry. Now we can actually do a lot of this without. Lumen is our new lighting engine. Lighting has always been something which drives believability. The Lumen engine allows for fully dynamic global illumination. That means that all of the bounce light that's being calculated in the scenes which you saw there and in the scene which you see in front of you now is calculated in real time. We don't have to bake anything out. It produces absolutely stunning results, and it's based on real world physics. The other thing which I'm going to mention here, because I know you actually have an interest in audio, just the spatialized audio down here at the bottom, realistic 3D sound fields to increase immersion. We're using a technique called, if I get this right, convolution reverb, which is the equivalent of 3D scanning a space for sound. So in other words, if you were to use convolution reverb for my living room, it would sound the way in which my living room sounds, or the Albert Hall. If you have that captured, it will actually produce the sound that you would get in the Albert Hall or church or wherever it happens to be. The way in which sound is reflected from the environment is captured from a real world environment. The next thing which I'm going to just mention to you is heading towards the metaverse and heading towards an awful lot of the worlds which we're dealing with. Having realistic humans is a very, very big part of everything we do in storytelling, in games, in film, in everything else. It's been possible to create very realistic human beings for quite a while in computer graphics, but it takes a long time to learn how to do it. And even for experts, it can take 3 or 4 weeks to make a realistic human. We purchased and merged with a number of companies, some in the UK, some in Croatia, to address this problem and to make the creation of meta-humans, as we refer to them, democratized. So this will allow us to make human beings that look like our character here very, very quickly and allow anyone to do it. And here's an example of that. This is a meta-human.
I am a meta-human, the next generation of digital human powered by Unreal Engine. Meta-humans are high-fidelity digital characters created by you, the user, on our new content creation platform, MetaHuman Creator. I am fully rigged, ready for animation and motion capture, allowing you to work in context. With everything running live in Unreal Engine, my motion works seamlessly
on other characters. I have 8 levels of detail and have been tested on a wide range of hardware platforms, from feature film to mobile. If you're interested in learning about my animation rig or high-fidelity deformations, built on Control Rig, the new strand-based hair system via the Groom component, or how everything is tied together and animated in Sequencer, then have a look under the hood in this project. This is just a glimpse of things to come.
Okay, so MetaHumans are available for you for free today. It's an online interface. The reason why it's online is because we have a large server farm which does most of the processing for you, so you don't need to actually worry about that. And it's free to use if you're using Unreal Engine as your final rendering solution, and it will remain free. Highly recommend getting online and playing with it. It's so much fun. This is a little bit behind the scenes of what's going on here, and really it is the most cutting edge technology that we have going currently. So let's have a look at what's going on here.
You create the narrative.
I am MetaHuman.
Initial spark for the MetaHuman idea was just the fascination with digital characters in CG. To us, digital humans are something magical even, and infinitely complicated. MetaHuman Creator is a cloud stream application that lets anybody create high-fidelity digital characters. What used to take months now takes minutes, and people don't even have to think about all the technical steps that they normally would need to take.
We're going after 3 really hard problems, and we're not compromising on any of those. Outright quality that you'd expect in a AAA game for a digital human, making sure that anyone can use this tool, that anyone can create a character in minutes or hours that used to take weeks and months. And all of that has to work at that fidelity with rigged and ready to animate in engine in real time.
This topic, previously reserved only for teams with large budgets and with large amount of time, now is accessible to everybody and even to people outside of the industry.
It's like really a very robust but very simple to use system, and it's really a joy when you just sit there in front of the tool and you can just like focus yourself on the sheer creativity and get excited about exploring.
The MetaHuman Creator uses a library of real scans of people. So when you move the handles around to create a character, you're mixing together these different parts of real people to create something that's still really believable and lifelike and has personality. But it's not just creating the shape of the face. You can also choose wrinkles applied to the face to make a character look older. But we're not just applying this as a texture onto the face, we also subtly change the geometry of the face at the same time to make sure those wrinkles really match with the shape of the face and just bring the whole thing together into a realistic and believable character.
One of the really cool features that you get out of the box with the MetaHuman Creator is that you're essentially focused on creating a high-quality character, but at the same time you get multiple levels of details.
We take the hugely detailed strand-based hair and turn that into carb-based groom and then into a simple helmet. We take the geometry of the face and make simplified versions of that. We also simplify the materials so that you can use these characters in a crowd or on a range of different devices. It's also creating a new rig for the character, which controls how they move, how they emote, and that really brings life to the character.
And then there's this other moment when you hit play and it comes to life. And that's really the benefit of being real-time and always generating this fully rigged version of the face, is you hit play and it moves, it's alive.
And this person who's come from your imagination that doesn't exist in real life is suddenly there looking at you, smiling at you. That is kind of magical.
When you look at MetaHuman Creator or things we're doing with Quixel Megascans, the things that are coming in Unreal 5, I think the type of content we're going to see from very small teams and individuals is going to be a massive shift.
MetaHuman can be your endpoint. It can be the character that goes into your game. But it can also be your starting point where you start creating your own layers on top of what MetaHuman provides. I feel that we've accomplished something truly remarkable here by creating these digital characters with which you can empathize. Our whole team spent years designing this database and these rigs, and we're so excited to give this back to the community around the world.
So when you finish up today, feel free to go home and start using MetaHuman Creator. I do warn you though, it is quite addicting. It's so much fun that you find it hard to stop. The next thing I want to talk about is Quixel tools. The Quixel tools are basically the other half of our equation to build worlds. So we have characters and now we want worlds. How do we build worlds that look like the real world? Well, the answer is we actually scan the real world. And again, we give you these scans for free. So let's have a look at what the Quixel tools are. This is a team we have going to Iceland to scan all these rocks and materials. They then put them into the Quixel bridge and they're then available for use for free within Unreal. We have various other tools that we can use with them to change the way in which they look and to use them in virtual production or in VR or anything else. Basically, it's the real world is being captured en masse and being put into a virtual prop store that you can get access to. So I think we have 15,000 items available currently, and it's growing all the time. Loud. This was back when we had 12,000 assets. So you can see we have natural materials, we have the built environment, we have even down to your sort of fruit and veg for your kitchen. I don't know why it stopped there, but we'll just go on to the next. We have only a few seconds left. So the idea is we're capturing the world so you can create your own, democratizing the creation of worlds so that storytellers and game makers and filmmakers don't necessarily have to have huge teams of very expensive artists. These very expensive artists will still have jobs, we're not taking that away from them, but they'll be working on things which are probably more interesting to them, more creative problems rather than just making the same rocks and stones that I spent my first 6 months in the games industry making rocks. When we actually use these kind of scan materials, we can build beautiful pieces of work like this example. And this is built mainly using the assets that we scanned in Iceland.
Adaptation.
So this is real time.
The ability to learn from past experience. The use of knowledge to alter their environment. These virtues defined our creators and drove them to the brink of destruction. we cannot exist without them. We must save her. What of our creators exists within us? Humanity has always had the potential to recognize its flaws and choose a better way. Can we save humanity? Was bringing her here the right choice?
Okay, we're nearly at the end at this point. Let me go to the next slide. Go on, next slide. This is a wonderful example of somebody making scans themselves. Now, all of these assets, as with many of the other assets which I've mentioned today, are available for free to download. This is a Swedish-Australian artist who basically went back to Australia, and rather than taking photographs, he scanned objects himself using photo scanning. Now, we have recently purchased a photo scanning company, and again, we've made that available for education for free and reduced price for all kinds of other people. This is a data set that's been used quite extensively in our new virtual production piece, which we're just starting to talk about, and you'll be able to follow that in the next couple of weeks as we release more on this. And again, this was one person in the space of a couple of weeks doing all these scans and building these worlds themselves. Rather than having to build from scratch using 3D modeling software, it's just absolutely fabulous technology to work with. I think we'll leave it there for the moment because I'm at time. I'm at time, correct? Yes?
Yes.
There's so much more to talk about, but there's some of my favorite high points of this year.
That was amazing, and the timing was extraordinary as well. Thanks so much, Mark. As a sort of factual filmmaker, it's really been a kind of really incredible journey for me, learning about game engine technology and also the possibilities, and seeing. I remember being on a virtual production set and seeing in Libya.
It's like the holodeck, isn't it?
And I was absolutely, I thought it was film and it wasn't. So really, really exciting. And I know that we'd all want to ask you 1,000 questions, but we have to show all these amazing projects. So. Feel
free to share my details, and if people want to get in touch with me, I'm more than happy to speak with them and with the students.
Brilliant. Thanks so much again, Mark.
Okay.
And yeah, we'll do that. We'll share your details with everyone. Thanks
lovely,
a lot.
Lovely to be here, and wish I could stay longer, but I'd love to see the projects later. Bye for now.
Cheers. Okay, so now we're going to start looking at some of the projects. Really exciting. We have got the way that this is going to run, as Lauren said earlier on, is that we're going to show you sort of 2 or 3 projects. We'll have presentations or videos from 3 different projects, and then we'll do a Q&A. And you can see at the bottom of your screen there's a Q&A box, so please just put your questions in there, because it's quite a big group, quite a big audience. So instead of just having people jumping in, if you wouldn't mind just writing your questions in the Q&A box. So we're going to kick off the virtual production. There are 3 projects that we're exploring virtual production, looking at workflows, looking at how to make virtual production something that was cheap enough that we could all work with it and learn from it, and train young people how to, you know, work on crews on virtual production sets. So we're going to kick off with University of Greenwich. So take it away, Lauren.
How to Be Good is a virtual production of a live action micro short film as a practice and teaching-led use case study. Our interdisciplinary approach aims to deliver curricula and teaching materials for workflow development and production workflows for VP. Here's a quick overview from one of the behind-the-scenes documentary short video clips, which was produced by Gabriella Perdan, our research and production assistant. project basically comes from a television project that I'm currently working on. And I just decided to extract a scene from the scripts and thought, you know, nothing too long, but nothing too short, because we wanted to be able to demonstrate multiple different ways that we could utilize the technology of virtual production in a green screen environment. How does the camera interact with the Unreal Engine? How does actors engage in an environment which is just green screen? But because we have the immediate playback, it is just that it's that gap between shooting in green screen before, where you were sort of flying blind and didn't really know what you were looking at, to where you could actually see the playback in the Unreal Engine and the live action together in the video village, which really gives us a lot of information, not only on our camera framing and our shots, but also the performances for the actor. In virtual production, 80% of the film is done in what's called previs, or that sort of pre-production phase, but it's called previs because you're pre-visualizing the actual film.
For a production How to Be Good, the form of virtual production being used was green screen hybrid. That is to say, actors were filmed with minimal practical set items and props in a 20 by 20 meter green screen studio. The cameras were mounted with the MOSIS Star Tracker system and camera tracking equipment, which feeds from the camera into keying software. This allowed the technicians to locate the actors inside the 3D virtual environment that had been created during the previs stage in Unreal Engine. This composite feed was then played out to a large monitor screen in the studio, such that the producer, director, and actors were able to see playback of the performances within the environment in real time. Our studio setup consisted of the Star Tracker sticker array. The use of camera tracking equipment necessitates additional on-set work before production can commence. This includes creating an array of stickers with infrared reflectivity, which are normally fixed to the ceiling of a studio. In this case, our studio ceiling was too high and obscured by lighting rigs. Therefore, netting was stretched across the bottom of the lighting rigs and stickers applied. In Figure 1, this shows how the camera captures the actors against a green screen studio environment, while a virtual 3D environment is created in the render engine. The equipment in the studio comprised of the following. Figure 2 is the camera used. It was a red weapon, which was hooked up to the recording equipment, keying system, and render engine. Figure 3A shows the radio lavalier mics, transmitters, and receivers, which were connected to a recorder mixer device. And Figure 3B shows the devices required to extract the audio from the camera signal and the DI, or direct injection, box to eliminate buzz from equipment. Figure 4 is the recording into a keying system, where the equipment required for the recording devices connect to the keying devices and render engine. Note, multiple SATA hard drive required, 1 pair for each 3 recording devices. And then Figure 5, for completeness, this shows the additional equipment, including a mini recorder connected to the independent PC that is used for the calibration process. And Figure 6, this shows the keying system used in our setup. In this case, the Blackmagic Ultimate system, which integrates and composites the pictures from the camera with the virtual environment in Unreal Engine. It's also important to note that COVID-19 has been critical to the importance of ushering in virtual production, such as remote collaborative workflows and newfound ways of working in a post-pandemic space. This new setup allows producers to think very strategically about what they shoot and limit the number of actors and on-set crew required. There were multiple challenges that arose during our production that will be key to our pedagogical approaches, and for which must be earmarked in documentation and teaching materials. Here we address 4 particular challenges in which we overcame through creative thinking and experimentation, but by no means are solved. One of those challenges facing emerging filmmakers embarking on virtual production is getting to grips with the different forms of filmmaking, a term that all forms are referred to as virtual production, and what this requires of them in such a highly technical setup. A common language must be devised to reduce barriers to entry and demystify what virtual production actually is and does. Number 2, there were also challenges working with a new agile workflow called iteration, rather than a more traditional waterfall workflow. This process, utilized in a remote collaboration form, informed our production decisions and uncovered yet another strand of research, which is further being explored and will be tested in the classroom. And number 3, for producers on VP who need to know that shooting schedules need to take into account lens changes and calibration required each time this happens is important. No longer do you schedule according to location changes, but rather lens changes will dictate the schedule because of the long calibration times.
the iteration workflow provides opportunities to test, feedback, and change scheduled planning in the pre-viz stage, which is absolutely key before you get on set. And then additionally, for the directors planning the shot list, there are needs to be considered when clustering shots taken on the same lens, rather than shooting the same location shot at the same time on different lenses. This will feed into the overall schedule, but it will also enable the director to have more control over the shoot in terms of fluidity, time management, and creative authority. One of the unexpected outcomes of this production, as an active teaching and learning methodology, was the direct student feedback on what they had gained through their participation being on set. The students remarked how much they learned from this method of filmmaking, saying it was the first time they felt like they were actually on a professional set with experienced filmmakers learning the ropes from professionals. Although perhaps this is a resource-heavy process, we would strongly suggest that some thought is put into practicalities of teaching more filmmaking-related exercises using these experiential learning methods, as the student experience seems to be richer and deeper than classroom and practice-led approaches on their own. A collection of skills contributed from each HOD are as follows: new languages that were learned, production workflows and iteration, understanding the kit and equipment, shooting behind the scenes, immersive and 360 worlds are outside of the headset now, pre-visualization for production design students, sound design ideas explored during pre-viz, the ability to adapt and develop your understanding through critical exploration. Immersive technology can be used to explore complex spatial information, and of course the shadowing experience. In the 6-month project, we've managed to squeeze in quite a lot of activity to explore, gain knowledge and practical hands-on experience, and from such activities we've managed to train quite a few staff and students. During production, we had 7 HODs who were faculty, 2 professionals and technicians, and 5 industry partners on the crew. We had 8 academic faculty and 2 industry partners for a 2-day VP workshop, and 4 academic faculty collaborated on our VP co-design session. Several courses and workshops have and will take place as outputs of this research endeavor. In our 2-day VP workshop, after principal photography was completed, all HODs delivered and disseminated each of their department findings. Key outcomes from each HOD's presentation materials can be fed into these challenges and opportunities and integrated into specific discipline training. Day 1 was a theoretical delivery of knowledge and insight from each department head who discussed their challenges and opportunities within their own disciplines. And day 2, students traveled to our partners' headquarters in Greenwich at Moses Labs, where they got practical hands-on training on the Star Tracker system and Unreal plugin, using scenes from the How to Be Good project to gain green screen and Unreal Engine virtual production experience. In the shared Google Drive at the end of the presentation, you can hear some of the students' feedback from this session. Our VP co-design session was developed remotely using Teams and Miro, which is a virtual whiteboard tool, and allowed the cohort to post, share, and comment on different ideas posed around various questions and signposting. And then the outcome of this co-design workshop was to draft an 8-week course which provided syllabi, which includes VP overviews, case studies, industry guest lectures and site visits, hands-on approaches with Unreal Engine, and an assessment which allows the students to interrogate specific elements of VP according to their interest and developing specialisms. Outcomes from the practical production experiences have also led to new insights for teaching and learning due to limitations of our own production experiences for which we might model in the classroom. For example, due to the nature of COVID and the work from home orders, our entire productions pre-viz was developed in collaboration remotely and online using digital tools like Zoom, Slack, Google Drive, Teams, and Padlet. Once we were together on set for principal photography, we discussed what the advantages of being on set were versus remote collaboration, or even the capabilities of being in VR to see the actual Unreal environment for which we might better plan out virtual cameras and lighting development. These findings and discussions will be taken into consideration when planning lessons around remote collaboration and working inside Unreal Engine environments using more immersive tools in future development. This project would not have been possible without StoryFutures Academy support and award. Being in this year's cohort has enabled myself, my colleagues, students, and alumni at the University of Greenwich to be in the right place at the right time for this growing sector. Thank you.
Thanks very much to Jodie Nelson-Tabor. Now we're going to move on to Abertay. Matthew Bett is going to do a presentation telling us all about their project. Matt, are you there and ready?
I am, yeah. Can everyone see that slide?
Perfect. Thank you. On you go.
That's great. This will be as exciting as the last one. Just to explain what happened with our project, obviously it was mentioned that we actually started in cohort 1 and we ended up in cohort 2, but I'll explain about that in a second. Our project was through the practical application of virtual production techniques for education, film in the entertainment industry. My expertise at Abertay, I'm teaching the games courses at Abertay, and I've been involved in virtual production since the very early days with a project a long time ago with 20th Century Fox just after Avatar. And we now have 3 virtual production projects going on, so it's also a big area of research. And I'm really interested in how we can apply games technology into non-games areas, which is really what virtual production is. And on the Hertfordshire side, we have David Tree, a senior lecturer, and we had Peter Richardson as well, who was at University of Hertfordshire initially and now is at Royal Holloway. So the concept for this was to explore how we can actually practically apply virtual production usage in education in courses universities are dealing with film-related studies. Identify the skill gaps that exist from the various different disciplines involved between film and game, special effects and all that. Looked at the current technology and techniques and tried to extrapolate some kind of cost-effective approach. We see all this stuff and like in the picture there from The Mandalorian, sort of presented as the how to do virtual production. That's a very, very expensive setup and not a realistic proposition for basically everyone. So we're investigating these for a very, very low cost setup using an iPad as the capture medium for the virtual camera into Unreal to facilitate virtual production and virtual scouting, something that could be done at a much greater scale, where students are effectively using this to achieve some virtual production techniques. And I'll show you a terrible little clip here, I think is next, of me doing very badly. So you can set up with the sort of demo project we set up in Unreal Engine. And as opposed to that setup with studio and many, many people, you can do the virtual camera work with an iPad and capture things real time, put it together in Unreal and edit all in a single place and render out. And apologies for the terrible looking video. I'm not a filmmaker. There's even a shot there that was actually out of focus, which is typical for me. But what we were able to prove with that very simple project was that actually it works quite well. But some of the limitations we had here. So the plan was actually we put together the framework and tested it, made sure everything was right, put together instructions and guidelines to be deployed to Hertfordshire University. This was rendered completely impossible due to COVID-19 because this was a entirely practice-based setup and there's no filming was allowed to take place. No students were allowed to come in. So we were limited to our internal testing. And it seemed wise to delay us to the second cohort, the trainer, at which point everything was redone for the latest version of Unreal, and teaching was again delayed, no practical teaching, at which point we decided we'd go for a workshop, which was prepared as a kind of a primer into virtual production to sort of answer some obvious questions and take away some false preconceptions of how good it is and whatnot. And that couldn't happen because at that time I was still unable to travel due to COVID restrictions, and so long story short, COVID has significantly curtailed the potential findings from this project from a student participation perspective, but we're still able to do a lot and work out some kind of core points from this exercise. So the upshot is that actually this very, very simple virtual production setup was found to be very, very good. It is more than comparable to the setups that were used initially on some Hollywood production efforts, obviously for a fraction of the price. So the iPads being a common item. Basically, any Apple device that supports ARKit can provide very, very good tracking for a virtual camera in Unreal Engine. We're using a modern iPad, a very recent one, but people having iPhones or iPads, it's a much cheaper proposition than having a multi-million-pound virtual production studio setup. It was very plausible to have a very lightweight project framework, which could be set up very easily. It wasn't a huge download, and it was a very robust combination in that when you wanted to do something, you simply switched things on and started them up, and they pretty much just worked, as opposed to, again, lens changes were mentioned as a particular time bottleneck in the previous green screen issue there. And with a real virtual production sort of set up with the screens, there's a tremendous amount of calibration and work that has to be done before anything can happen. So it was a very, very compelling setup. Through the project and the research that went on, we kind of able to identify some skills and proficiencies that are needed for everyone involved in the virtual production process. And some people may balk at a non-technical person being demanded this, but there's no excuse in my opinion. There needs to be some understanding of Unreal Engine for everyone involved. And a particular crossover part of the knowledge is that there needs to be an understanding of the virtual camera systems for filmmaking, and also from the technical people, an understanding of the filmmaking terminology and processes with lenses, film backs, and an appreciation for the understanding tracking technology you're using, whatever it is. A big thing that we found on this project and working with other partners is an experience and knowledge of working in and management of an Unreal project and version control. Because lots of film projects, it is still a video game environment, which means that this has to be controlled to keep it able to be worked on by multiple people, to have something that goes wrong, we can retrieve it, and there's video game practices that are established for this that are very easy to apply to other courses. There needs to be an understanding of real-time rendering systems, because there's always going to be limitations in them, despite the beautiful demo by Mark. There are still things that it's very good at and things that it is not good at, and things that when you make a decision to change or add something has implications, which are very easy to learn. And also for everyone involved, the differences between the game and film development pipelines and the game and film development life cycles are all completely different. And we're all used to doing completely different things, working a different way. And this has to come together with the discovering the new productions and life cycles for virtual production. So next steps, we're continuing work on this. This isn't something that's stopping here. We are in the process of setting up a dedicated virtual production research facility at Abertay, and continuing to develop educational materials and techniques using this as a stepping stone, trying to make it as cost effective as possible, further identifying the skill gaps that exist between all the different roles and their contribution towards virtual production, and the further development of Unreal's VCAM system, trying to make it something that's a bit friendlier for virtual production in education. And I think that is it, just coming in under the, I kind of overran a bit, but hey, we've got time, a little bit of time for some questions as well, possibly.
We'll do the questions after the next one, Matt. We're going to hear from John from University of Surrey, and then we're going to have 15 minutes of questions for the three of you guys. So thanks a lot. And I know that it was really quite an extraordinary challenge for you with COVID. So well done with that. And yes, so we'll hear more from you in a wee minute. Okay. We're going to next hear from University of Surrey, which is the third and final virtual production project that we've got. And I think it's ready to go and lined up. On you go, Lauren.
I'm John Weinbrenn, and I'm from the Centre for Creative Arts and Technologies at the University of Surrey. Also, I'm part of the Digital Media Arts team. And I'm here in our new virtual production studio stage, courtesy of Target 3D, Digital Catapult, and all sorts of other people doing a lot of hard work. I'm really here to talk about the Train the Trainers project. We created an initiative called Transience of Memory. Now, Transience of Memory is a brief which was part of a final year undergraduate module called Visual Narrative Collaborations, which involved bringing together students from various creative disciplines such as digital media arts, creative music technology, theatre and performance, film and video production technologies, and actually anywhere else that would work with them. And the idea is they were tasked to create an interactive piece in response to that particular title. The idea is we're going to transpose this particular module into our new MA program, which is called Film, Animation and Digital Arts. And we're also deciding to pivot the work from doing straight interactive video using the simple online platform, which was called Echo Studio, into something more ambitious, more difficult, more future-facing. And this uses game engines such as the Unreal Engine. It uses virtual production technologies, which is one of the reasons why I'm standing here. It uses rapid character creation technologies. It'll use AI. It'll use a bit of machine learning. It'll use anything that can be thrown at it at master's level. We decided that we will take the brief, opened it up to our recent graduates who are creating a response to the Transience of Memory brief in double quick time. And that's very exciting as well, and we'll talk about that in a bit. We're putting together this virtual production studio as a test stage. So we're learning a lot from this process, and the idea is that we can really understand what the challenges of these new techniques are. So I'm delighted to introduce you to Nazia Zaman and Roxy Oliveira. There are two graduates from last week from Digital Media Arts, and two very special people who are involved in a response to the Transience of Memory brief. Roxy, you've been involved in this project at final year level as well, so tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, I did VNC, so Visual Narrative Collaborations, and so in that project pretty much did the brief of Transience of Memory, but because of COVID we didn't get to do a huge amount. We got to do some stuff over Zoom, which that was quite cool. But it's nice now to be able to actually do a project properly in real life.
Tell us a little bit about the story that you've come up with communally.
One of our first thoughts was the idea of food and like getting this little memory from a flavor, sort of like ratatouille type stuff. And then from that, our idea sort of developed and we started actually dealing with the theme of loss and death, and how food could bring people together. So that's what the ideas come to. So now it's about this girl coming home to take care of her father, and as she tries to cook, and she's a pretty terrible cook, she finds this recipe book, and through the recipe book she starts getting memories of her mom who sadly passed away. And then through those recipes she starts learning how to cook again, and it's sort of about them coming together.
recently just picked up Unreal Engine for my final major project, which was screened at the BFI in South Bank, and it's called Atlas. It's a 4.5-minute animation about a little robot, very WALL-E-esque, in a little nature environment. And yeah, it was so much fun to do, and it was very challenging, but I learned so much. Creating environments was my favorite part, and that's kind of what I'm bringing to Transients of Memory, is really making the environments, animating the cameras, bringing in the characters, and hopefully animating them too.
So tell us what we're seeing on the screen here.
Yeah, so this is the opening of Atlas. It's just based in a forest. I went for a very stylized look just because I think it fit the theme of it being a very heartfelt, comedic little sweet animation.
What's your plans moving forward?
Definitely virtual production, something in this field. I just get goosebumps looking at big screens like this.
The thing that I love the most about film is the interactivity with people and crew and being around people. Like from my project, the directing side, I never thought I'd love it, but I loved it. And so for me, this sort of stuff is actually super exciting because I also love VFX, but the issue with green screen is you can't see anything of what's actually happening around you. So the idea that you could be here directing somebody and they can actually see what they're interacting with, we can actually change lights, we can actually do stuff like that. I think that's kind of amazing. I think this is the future, so this is really cool.
I'm delighted to introduce Damien Pace and Alice Mills, who are from the Creative Music Technology course. From the sound and music point of view, what are you working with?
Yeah, so we've been kind of involved in creating the story, and that's helped with coming up with ideas for what kind of music's going to be in the background. So at the moment, we've just had a look at the environment, get the kind of idea of what mood the music's going to be, and then coming up with a few ideas. And once we've got shots, it will be easier to form actual bits of music.
From a sound design point of view, we liked the idea of having a specific thing trigger a memory. So in this case, it's food, but also using the music and the sound design in a similar way. So we have certain themes that trigger specific memories and flashbacks.
Transients of Memory, as a brief, is all about creativity, imagination, collaboration, using interesting techniques and technologies to create something memorable and meaningful.
Thanks so much for that. So now we've got a few questions for the three projects. So Jodie, Matt, John, I loved the interview, John, with the students and the student who said, "Oh, I created a little nature environment, and there's this beautiful scene behind her." So yeah, thank you for including those. The students. It was really great to hear back from them. How did generally, how did the students react to sort of being part of a virtual production?
Is this to me? Sorry.
Yeah, to you, John, specifically.
Right. They were overused phrase, super excited, and bringing them down to our new studio and having them basically involved in that shoot, which was earlier this week. So there's a sleepless night putting that rough edit together. So apologies for the jump cuts and stuff. But actually getting them there when we were filming it, and obviously having them interview and seeing their content on the screen. And there's a slight leap of faith in a sense to, well, it's not really a leap of faith, it's fairly obvious that they can see how live action will be very soon integrated into their environments. It was just a really delightful thing to see. I think they're far more articulate than I am. So I will always put them on camera to do the talking. And they also were just fresh out of graduation, fresh out of a weekend of graduation celebration and balls. So hence one of them had a bit of a croaky throat, or all of them probably did. And also the week before, we just had our grad screenings, our film screenings at the BFI South Bank, which was an incredible day and success. And so they were sometimes referring to that as well. I mean, in a sense, what we've created is part of a larger initiative.
which incorporates a lot of things. And so I'm trying to hold on to those grads and work with them and employ them in our projects moving forward. Gosh, that was a long answer. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, great, really great to see it, and lovely to see the screen as well in action. Jodie, we've got a question for you. Can you tell us about the agile process and how different that was for you guys coming at this from a sort of filmmaker's perspective?
Well, I think probably the first thing I noticed, I wrote the scripts, and I think that was probably the first moment where everything changed because of the low budget, because we didn't have access to Unreal designers. We had to take assets from the Unreal marketplace, which were already created. And so what that meant was the script environment, the props, the elements that were envisioned in the narrative of the script had to kind of be revised to fit the Unreal assets that we had. And what that meant was that would change down the line for direction. It would change for production design, lighting, for the characters, things like that. So one of the challenges from the screenwriting standpoint was that you have to be quite flexible depending upon the budget of the project. And so I think this is something that would be integrated into screenwriting training in the future, is to understand that, you know, you can write a script and send it off to be produced, but depending upon the type of production that evolves, may mean that you have to change some of the elements of your narrative script. From the production standpoint, it was very interesting working in an online collaborative space, because the very nature of working collaboratively, where we're not in a production office or on set making decisions, we were inside the Unreal Engine working with Drew, who was essentially walking us through visual storyboarding, really, to make all of our decisions, creating our virtual lighting, our virtual camera, the lens decisions, the props decisions, how we would do a shooting schedule, understanding the workflow of how it all comes together. It was completely different than my experience, obviously, on a traditional film set. So we kind of tripped along and figured it out as we went along. But in that exploration, I think, is a whole new subset of training that has to come for producers to understand working within the VP environment, because even, you know, and again, even from the director, because I had all three roles, it was quite fascinating because I had an intimate opportunity to explore all of this and how they all integrated. But it's definitely, there was lots of positives in the iterative scheduling and planning, because multiple things were happening, and decisions were being made up front. As I said in the video, you know, 80% of a virtual production film is made in the pre-vis. All of your decisions, lighting, camera moves, blocking, props and sets, working with all of the departments up front to make decisions. Even the editor who was on set, who was in the pre-vis discussions in terms of thinking about keying and lighting and you know, color grading and how we would frame things, because we were looking at dailies as soon as they were coming off of the set. And, you know, so a lot of it was being sliced together as we went along. And I just felt that the process moved at lightning pace, but I think there was a lot of advantages to working in that type of environment.
Yeah, no, I think we've got a question from Amanda. Amanda, do you just want to ask the question?
Yeah, sure. I mean, first, wow, congratulations, all 4 projects. It's fantastic to see how they've come together, and also just amazing to see, you know, universities with phenomenal kind of virtual production sets and students actually having made productions. Seeing that come to life is fantastic. Well done. I guess my question was a bit about, you know, in the skills report we did only sort of 2 years ago, kind of skilled use of game engine was one of the biggest kind of, you know, the single biggest sector sort of skills gap. Well, how did your students, or even your trainers particularly, how do they find kind of using game engine and actually sort of learning those skills in what was actually a relatively short space of time? And that's for both, so I guess, Jodie and John, you know, the trainers and the students.
Go ahead, John.
Shall I go, or do you want to? Okay. Well, to be honest, it's something we've been doing for a long time. And although I think what we've got to be, what's interesting about skills gap surveys is they are very wide and very important. But what you're not going to capture is localized difference. It's like, I mean, we're subject in academia to a lot of metrics all the time. And usually those metrics don't apply to me, no, you know. And the thing is about those skill gaps in terms of skilling people up in games engines. We've been doing it for ages in an integrated program, which covers film, animation, games, et cetera, and there's always a bit of a discussion about, hold on a minute, it's not specialized, it's too generalized. And we just stuck our ground and dug our heels in and said, we need to equip people with filmmaking talent, with technology talent, and with understanding of things like game engines. Before Unreal came along to the rescue, we were using things like, obviously we used Unity. Before that, we used the Reallusion suite. Before that, we used Machinima. So the idea of real-time engines as pre-viz tools and getting your head around those is something which is sort of for us has been around for a while. But I also understand the difficulties of within specialized courses to suddenly say, okay, you are a graphic designer or you are a photographer. Now have a look at this. But I think the thing is that the tools themselves, in terms of entry level, in terms of opening it up and getting something done, particularly Unreal, credit to Epic, they're getting better and better and better and better, and easier and easier and easier and easier. To do something like really, really cool, really, you know, it's like, what is it, that thing that they say in video games, easy to play, hard to master sort of thing. So I think that, you know, the solutions are already flowing from isolated pockets within the community, and also within the the small indie production sector, so that would be my rather long-winded response.
Yeah, and I agree with John. On our side, because our departments are siloed slightly, so games is in a completely different school. We do have animation in the School of Design, but the film and TV program is really geared more towards traditional. Last year, our master's course did interact with Moses and had their first sort of VP project with one of the master students. But in terms of hands-on for Unreal Engine, you know, using it as a tool for VP is all completely new. And even for the staff, so we had 7 faculty who all come from traditional film backgrounds. And so luckily, Drew Macquarie, who works in the games department, who came to university just this year, we managed to nab him, and he really was the one that led the charge on the Unreal. So we all had an introduction to this new world of Unreal, and was able to explore all the facets of you know, what it can do. Drew was a very good teacher. He taught us the same, you know, at the same time of providing the production elements for us as well. And then of course the students had, you know, sort of an introduction to what was possible. And we've had a couple of students who have since gone to Moses to do specific training. Some of the students are thinking about doing a VP for their graduate project next year. So it's definitely made an impact just in the short amount of time that we've done this project. And we're already, you know, discussions are underway with collaborations with industry who want to ramp up training, doing training programs, apprenticeships, work experience, and also bringing them into the classroom, into our existing film and TV program, so that, and then of course, hopefully with revalidation, we'll be able to introduce a new program of VP and Unreal and do more interdisciplinary collaboration between drama, games, and film. And so that's what this project has really leapt off the page from. So we're really, really excited about that.
Thanks, Jodie. James, have you got a question?
Yeah, thanks everyone. It's really great to see the projects having delivered so much amazing work. I guess my question sort of is to the 3 of you, Jodie, Matthew, and John. And it's sort of broadly, are we shopping for unicorns? And what I mean by that is, you know, that we were doing some work. Peter Richardson has been leading some work with us around and development of the skills program, and looking at kind of like adverts that are being created in the industry for virtual production jobs. There was a couple that we kind of like, you know, spotlighted on where, you know, the list of skills was incredible. It was like, wow, who wouldn't want that? You know, C++ programming, visual effects design, animation, you know, it's like, wow. And I'm really interested in, like, you know, the unicorn kind of like mythology that we're almost like creating, people who are able to go across these different skills, and, you know, what extent you all are feeling that, yeah, how we equip skills interdisciplinarily, and to be able to fit these sort of like seemingly unicorn briefs. Just wondering if you have a response or thought to that market emerging.
Yes, I thought it was hilarious when, I mean, the middle of last year, early last year, I started seeing virtual production jobs getting advertised, and people that wanted 2 to 4 years experience of an industry that's existed for 6 months. And I was like, that seems unfair. There's lots of problems with that. The people that are looking for these unicorn people, it tends to be on a smaller team. You need someone that can do everything.
Okay.
And it's super tough. I mean, the problem is as well that these people are not, when you don't belong to a particular department, you find it kind of difficult to be championed, and, you know, it's just really hard, and there's very few and far between. Somebody's got their mic on. Can somebody mute? Sorry, I'm hearing somebody else in my ear.
Got it.
There we go. Yeah, it's super tough, and there's very few of these people in the games industry, because you can't be an expert at everything. I mean, as much as some people will tout they can be, but you just can't. It gets watered down, so it's super tough. And yeah, there's very few of these people, and if they do exist, they will be making a lot of money, in my opinion, and not be looking for entry-level positions.
Jodie, did you want to come in?
Yeah, so in our conversations with industry as well, a lot of them, you know, we ask them, you know, what do you expect from our graduates, you know, particularly moving into this new foray? And a lot of them are saying, you know, these specialism skills will be taught really more on site. What they're looking for are students who have a general knowledge of how VP works, what all the departments do, how they interlock, and then obviously focusing on your specialism. And then once you are hired at a VP studio or working for a particular one, you'll be then further trained on their specific technology. Because what we've also seen is that every VP house has different integration of hardware and software. So it's impossible to teach them these, you know, hard level skills when, you know, technology will be defunct or advanced in 6 months' time. I mean, as we've seen with Unreal. So I think one of the things that we tried to do in this project was to uncover workflows, but of course, along the way, we learned so many, you know, Pandora's box was opened, of course, in all other disciplines. It's like, oh my God, where do we even begin? But I think the value in how we put together this project, particularly the 2-day workshop, was each head of department disseminated what were their challenges, what did they learn from VP, how do they see themselves fitting into that new environment. And I think it was particularly helpful for the cohort who came along, because they all have different specialisms that they're interested in, whether it's producing or directing or whatever. One of the fascinating things, we had a graduate, a third year, who was a costume designer and a female. And I was particularly excited because she just saw a whole new possibility. I just want to learn all of this. This is not something I even thought about before. So I think there's an opportunity for those who don't already kind of work in that games technical environment to also see the possibilities of how they can work within the constraints of this department. But I think the unicorn, as Matt said, does not exist. If they do, they're going to make lots of, maybe they're a metahuman. Maybe that's the answer, you know, to have a metahuman unicorn come into the set. But
yeah, I mean, I think what it points to is that, you know, at this stage of the training pipeline that we're trying to create is the need to also track the graduates that you're all producing to see what happens. Because on one level, it'd be great if they morph into unicorns. On another level, if we create a market in which the unicorn is the kind of like staple, then games and virtual production are going to become very expensive for everybody all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
How are we doing for time, Mary? Do I head back to you?
I think we might need to head into a break just before we, sorry, John,
Okay.
maybe you can reply in the chat. And there are a couple of other things as well. Jessie Driscoll's pointing out that if you're interested in collaborating with that stage where John was doing his filming, then she's given you a place to register. So that's, brilliant. Thanks a lot, Jess. And also, I think Caroline was wondering where she can see the films that you guys have made. So Jodie, if you can
that last slide, if you're going to share the presentation, there's a Google shared drive that has the trailer and the final film in it as well. I wish I could have shown it during the presentation, but
I know. I'm so sorry that we've given you such short time, and I'm kind of excited again that there's so much that you have to tell. So I would really, encourage everybody to read the reports if they can, and definitely to watch the films. And yeah, huge congratulations to all three of you and your teams. They were incredible projects, and in these COVID circumstances particularly, I know, Matt, it's been a real nightmare for you guys with Hearts as well. So well done for getting this far. So we're going to take a really short break now, only 6 minutes. And then we'll hear from the next group. So please stay on, everybody. Just switch off your mics and videos if you want to, and we'll have a quick break and come back at 10:35. I want to make sure that we have all the time that we can for these presentations. So I think next up we're going to hear from Royal Holloway. And I'm particularly interested in this project because the module that these guys have been working on, my students are going to take this module in the upcoming year. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague from Royal Holloway, Nuno Barreiro, who is going to present
share my screen.
The project.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you and we can see your lovely presentation.
Oh, sorry. Okay, great. So let me get started. So this is interaction design for the masses. Interaction design in the usual sense of interaction design that, my background is from computer science, so it's interacting with, user interfaces, user experience, but it can also be interaction design, when you interact with your microwave oven. We talk a lot about that to our students, or you interact with your coffee machine, or you open the door. All that is interaction design. So we're having this very broad sense of what interaction is. And our goal was to combine. So we've been teaching this for a while at Royal Holloway, and we realized a few years ago that psychology was also teaching something similar, but so we were teaching something called human-computer interaction, and in psychology they were teaching human performance. But some of the lectures were very similar because interaction design by nature is a multidisciplinary activity. It has some aspects of computer science, some aspects of engineering, architecture, graphic design, psychology. So it's by nature, it has this multidisciplinary background. And so we started doing some things together with our students. So our students, as you can see in the pictures, we ask them to build these low fidelity prototypes. And then they have to demo these prototypes to their colleagues, and they get some, and usually when you're interacting with a device, you have to perform some tasks, and you have, in this case, this was a virtual shopping store, and you had to buy some clothes. And so you're testing your interaction with some users and to see if they can find the shopping cart or if they can find the different clothes. And you can see that with the same pitch, the outcomes, from these three pictures, you can see that the results are very different, right? So we started bringing in psychology students into the mix, and they would attend these sessions with the computer science students, and then we said, okay, we also on another hand, we also wanted to expand this activity to virtual reality and to augmented reality and bring in some of these aspects of interaction that are now, I mean, they are common now, but they are growing, let's say. And so we are thinking, okay, how can we combine these two modules? How can we expand this to immersive technologies? And in particular, how can we deliver this across 3 schools? And this is something that has not been done at Royal Holloway. Of course, we collaborate between departments, but if I tell you that I'm from electronic engineering and I'm teaching with someone from computer science, nobody will find this really surprising. But here we're really going for 3 different disciplines. So psychology, we're going to teach this to media arts, we're going to teach this to computer science, electronic engineering. So we bring all these students together and all these academics together. So we had this Train the Trainer project, fortunately, because it allowed us to explore this possibility. And so we had lots, we were delivering this year. So we had the opportunity to already test some stuff during the lectures during the last academic year. So Mimosine, which is our industrial partners, they came and they did some workshops on prototyping tools. We had questionnaires for the students at the end of the term. We ran a focus group with 3 sessions for the students. We consulted with external academics. We had a very nice consulting. I mean, some sessions of consulting with UX Academy, and we are trying to develop something a bit more exciting with them, and of course, advice from our mentors. But at the end of the day, and you can see this by this little graph below, computer science students were really excited about learning more about psychology. Psychology students what they really wanted to do is build the prototypes too, because they only came to the sessions where they had to evaluate the prototypes. And they would always say, we also want to build the prototypes. And more importantly, so this is the last line, excuse me, of the table. These students, both from computer science and from psychology, they were not aware that they could have a career in user experience, interaction design. And so we are raising this awareness we are giving them, let's say, the first tools that they can use to going onto such a career. So as part of this project, and because we really want to give the students this kind of the VR aspect of interaction design, but we don't have, I mean, and we've been discussing this today, we don't have time in such a short one-term module to teach them how to build things in Unity or Unreal and how to assess that. So what we did is that we have this very simple VR experiment where students can configure some settings. So for example, they can select between, does the user use the hands to grab objects, or does the user point and click to grab the objects? And you'll see that there's a small video where I show you how to configure that. And then at the end of the experiment, they have a huge, ugly spreadsheet with lots of data where you know how the hands moved during the experiment, how the head moved during the experiment, where all the objects were during the experiment. And they're able to, because this is also an important aspect of interaction, they're able to assess the effectiveness of interaction and what the user was doing during the interaction. So let me just show you. Of course, this is available. There's the link here. We have this website, interaction.study. You can use the app, you can download it. It's a Unity app, but it runs, it's a standalone Unity app. And I mean, just let's look at the video.
The Unity Experiment Configurator allows you to conduct and measure user interaction experiments in virtual reality. To get started, download the Interaction Lab application. You can find this via the Getting Started guide. Next, log into the website to start creating your own experiment configurations. Using a simple form, you can specify interaction types and the shapes, colors, sounds, and sizes of target and distractor objects. Once complete, your experiment can be downloaded as a config JSON file. Once downloaded, return to the Interaction Lab application on your machine and place the config file into the Input Elements folder. Double-clicking the Interaction Lab executable runs a VR experience with your configuration applied. The results from your VR interaction experiment, including duration, head and hand positions, are automatically recorded inside a CSV file, which you can find in the Output Elements folder. Your experiments will be stored online via your user account. You can also repurpose existing experiments using the duplicate feature.
Okay, so what's next? So we're starting these modules, as Mary was saying, in September. So we have one module, PC 3001, for computer science and psychology, another module for electronic engineering, and another module for the MA in immersive storytelling. All these students will be working together in the same cohort. They will be building these prototypes. They will be designing these and testing each other using these tools. We realized that some of the students will not be very happy to look at these huge and ugly spreadsheets. So we are building a data visualization tool with some computer science students. This is a summer project that is ongoing. We will also have an interaction design workshop in September. We also have an eye tracking workshop in April. All this is kind of part of this project. And we are working with UX Academy, and we are very excited about this participation to deliver some short courses to our students that can, I mean, they will not be assessed, but they will still be part of the students' transcripts. And this is good for employability, and this is good. So let's say that this interaction design module is just the starting point, and then they can go a bit further. And we are also thinking about providing some more broad interaction design courses with StoryFutures. Thank you.
Thanks, Nuno. We'll definitely have some questions for you as well when we've gone through the next, when we've heard from the next groups. Next up, we have De Montfort University. With a really interesting project, transdisciplinary prototyping labs for immersive storytelling. And this project is actually one of probably the most ambitious in terms of the number of students that they will be taking courses as a result of the work on Train the Trainer project, which is more than 600. So we're going to hear a pre-record from Sophie Smith.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Sophie Smith, and I am Director of the Institute of Creative Technologies at De Montfort University. And I'm here doing this presentation to tell you about our project that we did for Train the Trainer, Cohort 2. So bear with me while I share my screen, which hopefully will work okay. Now we'll go to slideshow and we'll play from start. So the Institute of Creative Technologies was founded in 2006, and we're really a hub where people from different discipline areas, so arts, technologies, humanities, all kinds of creative practice can come together and prototype different projects, explore new ideas, and really see what happens when you get the different discipline areas together working on a project. So our project for Train the Trainer was transdisciplinary prototyping labs for immersive storytelling. Now, we have a number of different models at the IOCT that we already use in terms of transdisciplinary prototyping, but at the minute, these tend to relate to either our research or our work with industry. And really what we wanted to do is to be able to spend the time looking at how we could extend this into the teaching across the university. So we've got 14 team members in this project across 13 subject areas listed there, and that includes academic staff and technical staff as well. So as many different people as we can get to work together. When we were developing the project, the team members were saying what they really wanted to do was to develop their expertise across different areas of immersive storytelling. So looking at different kinds of narrative structure, looking at the role of game engine, we chose Unity. And then access to specific immersive technologies, for example, volumetric capture, photogrammetry, and also spatial audio. So what we did was to devise this kind of program of creative workshops where people could get experience of these different areas, and then a lot of kind of Zoom and team meetings about how we could really see this play out over the future in terms of curriculum development. And for us, that was across undergraduate, postgraduate talk, postgraduate research, so the whole kind of gamut of the curriculum. So we had a couple of days of Unity Bootcamp, which was fabulous. And I think with all these, what's important to point out is it's not about people becoming experts in these areas. You know, within kind of interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary work, it is important to understand that actually disciplines are important. And whilst myself, for example, as a musician and a composer, will need to know about Unity and game engines and how they work for my own immersive practice, I'm not the Unity expert. I will go and talk to the Unity expert. But again, what people wanted was this kind of real understanding of the potential areas that they could move into within their practice and their teaching. So we had a couple of days Unity workshop. We had some creative volumetric capture workshops. So again, in this, we've got people from AI and game programming, music technology and performance working together in the creative space to try and develop these little projects and to see how they could use it in their own work. You can see here that this is a physical workshop, which was amazing. So some of them were physical and some of them were online. We also had a physical workshop in photogrammetry. And here we've got some of the game art team and the music technology team working with Rob to look at how they can use photogrammetry within their practice. We had some workshops in spatial audio by Anastasia Devana from here XR, which were brilliant. And interestingly, again here, she was working with music technology specialists and composers who use immersive in their practice, but so far that hasn't been immersive in the virtual space. So they were really interesting workshops to see how these kind of levels of expertise that these staff already have could be transposed into these different environments. Now, one of the interesting things that came up was when we were talking about how we were going to implement these into the curriculum, we realised that we needed some kind of a tool to support the students to start developing their immersive projects. So here are the master students who were tasked with the development of an immersive practice card deck. So they looked at a variety of kind of immersive practice theorists, they spoke to different practitioners, and then through an iterative approach of trying out these different post-it notes, came up with an immersive practice card deck. So that's currently with the printers, but copies will be available. And it would be great to see how you'd use them. So this is just some information here about the different categories that are included in the card deck. So mode, narrative structure, but equally things like onboarding and offboarding, about the role of the audience and audience agency. So hopefully quite a kind of holistic approach. And the idea is that it's for people who haven't necessarily developed an immersive project before, so to kind of scaffold them, but also to provide some challenge to those who perhaps have, but haven't thought necessarily about all the different implications of these areas. That's my 6 minutes up, but I'm just going to keep going, so I will finish as soon as I can. So what we tried to do was to find an approach that would let us respond immediately, but would also allow us to make those bigger changes over time within the curricula. And that would cover, we've got here kind of the formal curriculum, but as well as extracurricular input. So one of the ways that we decided to do that immediately is through offering guest lectures. So the team have come up with this list here of lectures that they can share across the different programs and across discipline areas, both in physical workshops, but we're also working with the distance learning team to see how they can be presented digitally as well, which will be brilliant. But here's an overview really about the approach that we're now taking and how this is going to play out. So you can see at the top here we've got the development of the shared teaching, which is what we were just looking at on across different faculty programs. And here's the list of the different workshops that staff can offer across the programs. And then simultaneously, we've got the development of the immersive card deck to support experimenting and experimental prototypes within these areas, and these are the different categories here. Now, what we're also working on at the minute is the development of a media production BA, which exists, that's currently being redeveloped to introduce immersive practice at level 5 and 6. And there are a number of the team members on this project who are leading on that. And also, for the last 15 years, I think, we've run a MA, MSc in Creative Technologies, and that's up for periodic review, timely, in September. So we're looking at the potential of adding an immersive practice pathway to that programme. Now, the issue is that these developments take years within university structures, so hopefully these will be on the books by 2022. But equally, you can see at the bottom there, we're establishing a trans-faculty university society in XI immersive practice. And what we want that to be able to do is, first of all, to create a community across the different streams, so undergraduate and postgraduate and research staff, but also to enable those who might not be able to access their curriculum but are really interested in immersive to be able to plug into that. So that is going to be led by our postgraduate students for the rest of the students at the university. So we're really excited about that. That'll be happening at the end of September. Got some great feedback from the projects. Interestingly, the two areas that people seemed really excited about was, first of all, development of expertise within their own area, their own discipline area. So you can see at the top here is some feedback from academics within games programming, and at the bottom within music technology. So, you know, people really valued that time to be able to develop their expertise that they can then pass on to the students. But equally, you can see from this feedback here that actually a lot of value was found in just having the time to share. We've been trying to get together for years, and what Train the Trainer has done is really give us the opportunity and the time and the space to come together and have these conversations, which have been absolutely incredible, and I know that staff really valued that. And for me, this is a kind of a visualization of the benefit and the bonus of the whole project for us. So, you know, what it has enabled us to do is to bridge these different areas and these different disciplines, and for us to be able to see links between performance and game development, and links between game art and music technology, and not just see them, but be able to get together and talk about how we can bridge across and make this kind of communication a reality. So that's been absolutely amazing. But also what's been brilliant, it has given us the confidence now to launch off into the future and into these developments that I've outlined earlier. And I think most importantly, you know, you can see here, it's risky. It is really risky, but actually any of the challenges are completely outweighed by the exhilaration that you get when you manage to pull it off. And when we're working really well together in this kind of transdisciplinary way to support the students in their immersive practice. So I'm sorry I overran, but just to conclude, really, thank you, Train the Trainer. This has been an absolutely incredible experience, and one that we couldn't have done without you. So I am ready now if anyone has any questions.
Cool, thanks, Sophie. It did make me giggle when I watched your video, first of all, when I saw you just ignoring your 6-minute alarm. So yeah, we're going to come to questions for you as well in just a little bit. But first of all, I am really happy to introduce Tina Chowdhury from Queen Mary University of London. And this project is really different to all of the others because these guys came from a science background, and the challenge was really to bring immersive storytelling to scientists. But I'm going to let Tina take over and tell you all about their project.
Brilliant, thank you very much indeed. And I'm just playing around with my screen. I've literally just moved to this house, so I'm hoping nothing is going to collapse in terms of the internet connection. But I'd just like to start off by introducing some of my colleagues. I mean, this is a team effort. It's highly collaborative and highly interdisciplinary. Heather McRae, put your camera on, please, Heather, where are you? And wave and say, you know, Heather's been instrumental in supporting us over a number of years at Queen Mary University of London, and Simeon Quarry from Canon, Phil Badham, Deepa Manclair, who's somebody that we recently met, and I really hope, Deepa, that we're able to continue this wonderful, exciting collaboration. And my goodness me, StoryFutures Academy, you have blown us completely with this project. I mean, it's been hugely challenging. It's been a significant learning experience for us. We are so excited about next steps. And I think Heather, every time we have a conversation, she's frightened by the numbers of students that we're engaging in this particular project. So I'm going to start by asking you a question. What do you think the word engineering means to you? Because this is an important question to ask, because when I introduce myself as an engineer, usually people think that, oh, Tina's building trains or airplanes, or she's designing electric vehicles. But actually, engineering is a bit more complicated than that. This is a very interdisciplinary field. This is about mixing the biology with the mechanics, the maths, and the medicine. And just to give you a couple of examples, I mean, we're developing technologies that could be used in medicine. We're developing therapeutics that could be used to treat diseases in your grandchildren. And so as an academic, when I start thinking about how I'm going to teach these sorts of concepts to my students from different disciplines in engineering, I lose a lot of sleep. There's a lot of anxiety, which is why it's not just about the science and engineering. I like to use the term STEAM, STEAM with a double M, because it is science, technology, engineering, arts, maths, and medicine. And when I think about the sorts of skills that I would like our students to develop and learn during their undergraduate programs here at Queen Mary, I lose even more sleep, because those skills are changing every day. And we have to think very carefully how we're going to support our students, because we want our students to do well after they graduate. We want our students to be academics or scientists or engineers working in different fields, whatever their chosen path is. But the questions that we're struggling with right now is, well, how do we help our students develop those skills and recognize the importance of those skills? So I'm going to start this story from the beginning. I'm going back to 2010. It was an exciting time for us. We just appointed our new principal. New principal means new strategy. New strategy means new education strategy. So there was big changes. The word that we used for skills, we developed a framework. It was called the Queen Mary Graduate Attributes Framework. And on reflection now, a decade later, when I think back to what that framework actually meant, it was really quite confusing. We were expecting our students, thousands of students, to develop skills, hundreds of skills, during their engagement of the program. And when it came to teaching those skills to our students, the academics were confused by the Graduate Attributes Framework. The students were equally confused because they weren't quite sure what the relevance of all these soft skills, hard skills, practical skills, what all of that meant, which meant that we had to change things. And the reason why we were able to change things so quickly was because COVID, technology, and you guys, the StoryFutures Academy, you funded our work. And this was instrumental in making change, because the changes that we have made have happened in literally the last few months. So instead of having a huge box set of skills, there's hundreds of skills, we managed to narrow down those skills into 22 skills. And that took a lot of work. And we packaged those skills into 5 areas: resilience, creativity, communication, professional practice, and technical skills. But actually, we spoke to a lot of people. We spoke to industry, we spoke to governing bodies, we spoke to engineering societies. And part of that that conversation was actually defining what these skills mean. And our purpose was really about helping our students recognize the value of developing these skills. You know, we want our students to think about what they're good at, what are they not so good at, rather than worrying about the marks, which is why I like to call the SEMS graduate attributes framework. It's a bit like a savings account, because we want to support our students create a portfolio, a collection of skills in storytelling and communication, so that they can then showcase their activities for further job applications, for further training in their future careers. So this is my only wordy document. Now, when we submitted the paperwork for approval for regulations, it was a 50-page document. So here we've got a little table, and on the left-hand side, I've written the word communication, because we have 4 skills that we would like our students to develop in communication. And this is where Heather and I were banging heads quite frequently, trying to understand, well, what does communication skills mean? How are we going to teach our students to develop communication skills? And it always came back to storytelling, trying to understand, what does storytelling, what kind of tools rather can we use for storytelling? And we were very excited by developing and creating these workshops. I've got a little film to show you the development, and I'm quite excited by this. It's not as flashy as Mark's films that we saw earlier. But one thing that I do want to add is that these skills frameworks have been identified for each of the modules that we're going to be delivering to all our first year engineering students from different disciplines. And when I talk about different disciplines, I'm talking about chemical engineering, bioengineering, mechanical engineering, aerospace engineering, and the list just keeps going. So for me, it's rather scary, but exciting. And these students are going to be starting in 6 weeks' time, and they're going to be learning these sorts of storytelling skills within each of the modules. Now, we had to create a piece of software, and I think as academics, we all know how difficult it is when developing software within an academic environment, which is why I'm very proud of this. So we had to connect different types of software packages with our new portfolio package. It's called the Queen Mary Plus Hub. And the idea is that the students can populate this hub with their academic evidence, showcasing their storytelling skills, and they can do this across the academic year, per year group throughout the program. And the idea is to build a collection of stories linked to coursework for each of the modules that they're learning in the first year of their degree program. And the most important bit of this piece of software, I know it doesn't look very exciting to you, but it took a huge amount of work for us to create this, is this little box at the bottom, which is all about reflection. Because we want our students to add their collection and then think carefully about what they learned. What was so good about the film that they made? What was so less good about the story that they told? And this sort of growth in their personal attributes, in their storytelling skills, is something that the student can keep secret if they want to, or they could showcase it to whoever they want. So they could put it on Twitter, they could put it in social media, whatever it is. And I think in terms of sort of the activities, the collection, this bank of collection that they are creating and developing, it's something that's going to be really, really important in their future careers, because they can go to a job interview and say, look, I worked with the StoryFutures Academy and I learned how to tell a story, and then I published a film with the BBC. And I think that's just such an important thing that, you know, we at Queen Mary want to be able to do. So next steps, what are we doing right now? Well, it's been a crazy week, an absolute crazy week for us, because our students have been testing both the framework and the usability of the software. And the other thing that they've been doing is that we have just received responses from our students. So they've given us quite a bit of feedback, really detailed feedback on the value of the framework, the software usability. And also an important question is to how we should introduce the framework to all our first year engineering students who are starting in 6 weeks' time, so this September. And one of the things that is worrying me right now, so I'm going to be starting to lose even more sleep over the summer holidays, is we're going to be training our module organisers in how to tell a story. And if I think about some of our academics who are from the different disciplines, the personal attributes that they have are very, very different depending on the discipline that they come from. So we've got a bit of an agenda here. We've got very, very little time. If I think about what's happening in the future, we need to think very carefully about how we're going to integrate the framework with our activities across the School of Engineering and Materials Science. We want to encourage and motivate all our students. This could be working through industry or alumni or outreach and various admission events. And the plan is to roll this framework out to all programs for all years within engineering by 2025. So I'm going to need your help with this. So I'm going to play a film, and I'm hoping that this film is going to work. Is the sound okay? Queen Mary University of London and the Ideas Foundation. I'm a role model, scientist, scholar, visionary. We're using storytelling to improve diversity in engineering. We want to tell the story of how bioengineering sustained babies' lives.
Tina, I think we're having some difficulty hearing the sound.
Okay, what was the thing that I need to click? Share computer sound, is that right? Can you hear it now? We also hoped to find a pot of gold that could make our ideas happen. We began to get to grips with a new vocabulary. We want tools that are inclusive and accessible for all. We piloted a workshop on Zoom to look at how to create stories using Adobe and TikTok. We saw an immediate difference in learning. We realized that story finding and storytelling techniques were the priority. Technology came second. We learned about different workflow tools and used Padlet to plan and share our ideas. We received helpful feedback from participants and leadership from students, teachers, scientists, engineers, professors and directors. We worked hard with our academic colleagues and we developed the SEMS Graduate Attributes Framework, which was approved in April this year. We will now embed storytelling skills for all our engineering programs. We have met colleagues from arts and culture who will help us on our quest to deliver communication skills to our first year modules starting in September. Our first workshop will be delivered to students from different disciplines in engineering. This work is partly funded by the Royal Academy of Engineering, working with the Ideas Foundation. Brilliant. So I hope you managed to hear that. We'll make sure that that video is available as a resource for you to watch. But as a direct consequence of that workshop, where we had students from different disciplines, students at different levels, so undergraduate, postgraduate and PhD and postdoctoral researchers, as well as the Ideas Foundation, we were able to create a very short film. And this is something that we did remotely. It uses the same music and it uses the voiceover, but the story is about saving babies' lives. So it's more focused about my research. But what I wanted to emphasize is that this model of creating a workshop teaching our engineering students how to tell a story is something that we are going to be delivering later on this year. So this is a very short film, and I'm just going to click through and play this for you. Thank you.
This is where a baby lives, in a fragile but protective balloon in the womb. That baby died at 26 weeks of a mobile phone. If she didn't die at delivery, her mother would also have died. And it's not just the challenge of working out why this happens. There's also a challenge about getting the right donations from the right people to support these mothers. This is what it looks like when the waters break early. It's like an alien world, and engineers are trying to understand how they can repair this and what is causing it to break. Mums, families, scientists, engineers, with support from Queen Mary University of London, are all working together to save lives and change the future.
Okay, thank you. And I'm just going to click through to our last slide and just say this is something that I wanted to show you. It's a photograph. I know that today we've had some incredible presentations with some amazing 3D, 4D graphics, but actually the story that this photograph is showing you, is telling you, has a lot of irony. You can see all my wonderful students. They're wearing lab coats and they're smiling and they're really, really happy. And there's me wearing a brightly coloured t-shirt, no lab coat. I'm completely doing everything wrong when it comes to following regulations, work and health and safety. But the beauty of this photo is that we're all smiling and we're all saying thank you. Huge thank you, because our students, when it comes to storytelling, they need organisations like you to understand the importance of storytelling and how they're going to be using this in their future careers. So StoryFutures Academy, thank you so much. I'm going to end now with a very positive film. It's only 40 seconds to show you what we are doing at Queen Mary University of London. So this is our research in engineering. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, everybody.
All right, thanks a lot, Tina. Thank you very much for that. Really incredible results. Right, we're going to pin the 3 groups now again, so we can kick off some questions for you guys. Nuno, I've got a question for you here from Kim Lee. What were the interaction design learnings from your prototypes?
Interactions and learnings, in what sense, to the students?
I don't know. Kim Lee, do you want to expand on your question?
Seem to not be here. I am here.
Yeah, okay. Oh, we can hear you.
I am here, but I appear to be a body of water. Okay, good. I meant for everybody. So for the students, for the staff, what did people learn about interaction design from those prototypes that were made?
I'm not sure I understand the question. This is the students, they have to build interactions and they design these prototypes that they interact with. And then
what did they learn about interaction design?
They learn how to design interactions. They learn how to engage the user, how to measure where the user is looking at. They measure they assess the tasks that are done by the users, and if the user is able to find the kind of things that they should find in the user interface, and then they modify accordingly.
Okay.
Does this answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Sorry,
what?
I don't know why I'm a body of water. I'm trying to smile encouragingly. I just look like a body of water. I'm going to turn that background
The
off.
second question, did you intend for people to engage with the table of data that you showed as your output? I mean, this was not, so this is still, the students are going to use this next year, right? And for psychology students and for computer science students, they are completely used to this kind of data. Okay, this is the stuff that they get, and they prefer to get data in this format than to have a visualization tool. But for students from different backgrounds, and to make this a bit more broader, we are designing this data visualization tool. So yeah, but this is the kind of stuff when you're doing. Oh, I can see now. When you're doing VR. Sorry, when you're doing interaction design experiments and you're measuring the eye tracking or hand tracking or number of errors or speed of interaction, usually you get this kind of data and then you do the statistical analysis. Yeah, I mean, this is one important aspect of the module is also being able to assess statistically, doing A/B testing, understanding if one user interface is better than another, if one button is better than another. So this is an important aspect. Of course, we don't expect all the students to engage in the same way with this kind of CSV data, but some of them will definitely. Yeah. So now interaction design is about connection inputs and outputs for humans. In a repetitive medium platform. Yeah, I mean, yes, this is not exactly true, because there are some first principles that from psychology that apply to any medium and any kind of interaction: peripheral vision, color perception, movement perception, sound perception, Fit's law, how fast can you move towards a target. I mean, all that stuff does not depend on this is very general, right? Then, of course, if you are working for building a washing machine or building a web page or designing a VR experience, there are some specific things that need to be taken into account. UX Academy is not exactly teaching the module. They gave us some important advice on how to how to bring the industry perspective. So it's important. I can give some background on UX Academy. There are industrial practitioners that have developed these courses about user interaction for working. I mean, these are not aimed at university students usually. They are aimed at other professional practitioners that want to improve on their UX, UI skills. And so they brought this industrial perspective. They have a specific course on voice interaction. They have a specific course on web. They have a specific course on the first principles. And they gave us some feedback on what was missing from our module in terms of industrial aspects. It's important to mention that this is not a module aimed specifically at immersive experiences. We want the students to have that component, but most of the students will most probably be working on web development or even assessing other kinds of interactions. And psychology students, they work a lot with architecture and stuff like that. Yeah.
Thanks, Nuno and Kimberly. Thank you. Tina, we've got a question for you from David Howard from Royal Holloway, from the engineering department. And he's saying that he agrees with you about the importance of storytelling in engineering. Do you encourage this in all engineering modules, and do all teaching staff take it on board? And is it going to be part of their formal assessments of the students? I'm assuming not the...
I'm going to keep on smiling as I answer this question. And look, engineering is very interdisciplinary, and I think the beauty of when it comes to storytelling is bringing together the different disciplines to create a story. So it's not just about the engineering subtypes; it's also about the arts and culture and theatre and everything. Which is why I keep saying this is STEAM with a double M. Now, your question about trying to encourage academics and the importance is a bit of a challenge because, whilst academics are from different age groups and cultures and disciplines, it can be quite difficult to try and persuade. But that's the beauty of the Train the Trainer programme. If I can get academic staff to attend these really important workshops, then they can see the creation of this content, and they can see how the students react and how they perform and what they create. And I think that's what we've got to do. Whilst I have, I think it's 9 module organisers that need to attend this training workshop before the start of term, which is why I'm panicking. We want to be able to roll that out, that conversation to all the other academics bit by bit. And that's going to take a bit of time, a bit of persuasion. But with Heather on board and the team on board, I think we can do it. We're very ambitious. We're always ambitious at Queen Mary, but we're also very excited. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, I loved hearing the news just this morning. It was like being back in the newsroom for me as a journalist, where suddenly the news came in just before we came on that 600 more students were going to do this. So yeah, I love that. So Sophie, will you talk a little bit about the sort of cross-disciplinary aspect of your project as well, because I think your project was one of the most ambitious, as I said, in terms of the numbers of students who are going to benefit from these, from the new lessons and modules and workshops. But also you had, I think, 13 different departments who were involved. It was massive. So how difficult was that to organise, and what was the response from everybody within, across the departments?
Yeah, the response was really great. I think we've come from a slightly different point in that everybody was already asking for this, but without the trainer, we didn't have any other possibility for the funding to kind of run the workshops and take that time. So we've been kind of in a position for the last 3 years where people across these different discipline areas have gone, we just need to get together because we're all working within immersive practice, but slightly different, with slightly different focuses. I mean, for us, you'll have seen that the workshops we did were in Unity rather than Unreal. And the reason for that is we have a really strange, across the university, we teach both systems, but and we're affiliated with Unreal and Epic, but that's within game art and concept design. The game development use Unity. So for us, we kind of needed to span both of those as well. And I think it was interesting, that conversation people were having earlier on about the hunt for the unicorn. And I think the approach that we take is, in the meantime, while these kind of hybrid people are developing, we're creating our own unicorns. So one person might bring the front legs and the other one might bring a rainbow tail and someone else will bring the horn. And together we can kind of stick them all together. Because disciplines, I was saying in the talk, disciplines are still important. We can't expect to be specialisms across everything. So for us, it was about getting those different specialists together to start working more collaboratively.
Cool, thank you. Tina, we've got another question for you. Are you connecting the storytelling agenda at Queen Mary with the research impact agenda?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, this is all about research and interconnection. I mean, it's innovation, it's pedagogy, it's development of scholarship activities. It's so important. And I think in terms of our research impact with RefTEF, Athena Squan, EDI, I'm overloaded with documents that I need to write and submit. It's full on. I mean, I think somewhere in that slide, I talked about the value of the framework and how we're integrating that with SEMS activities. And SEMS is the School of Engineering Material Science, but there's big changes at faculty happening right now. And I can't make the announcements. I can't tell you what's happening because it hasn't been released yet. So there has been quite a bit of restructuring. So if I go back to that word, STEAM, again, research activities closely linked to education strategy. We published the 2030 strategy last year. It was supposed to take us a decade to do this in terms of storytelling, but we're doing it in 6 months. So, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Massive congratulations to all of you. Really, really incredible results again. So thank you so much for your presentations as well as all the work, you know, on your projects. We are going to take a very short break and 5 minutes, if that's all right. If we can come back for 11:35. Again, just stay on your, stay in the Zoom, just turn off your cameras if you want to. And then we're going to hear from Verity McIntosh from University of West of England. She's going to be up next to talk about their project. So see you guys in 5. Okay, welcome back everybody. And we have 2 more teams to hear from, and both of them have got a focus on audio. Verity, are you ready to go? We're going to kick it off with Verity McIntosh from University of West of England.
I am ready. Let me make sure I'm sharing the right stuff with you. How's that? Can you see my can you hear me now? Can you see my can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but I can't see you. So, well, I can see you, but there we go. Yeah, we can see it now.
It's mostly about audio, so I'm happy not to be a visual human for a bit. So yes, hello, I'm Verity McIntosh. Thank you for bearing with us. I know energy can drop at this time of day, so feel free to let it, that's okay, I will hold you. I'm a senior lecturer, I'm a researcher, I'm a creative producer, and I run UWE's Masters in Virtual and Extended Realities. That's the University of the West of England, which we call UWE. And we've been running that Masters since 2019 and had some fantastic successes. We're really enjoying seeing the graduates who are finding the world, some of whom are actually in the audience today. Lovely to see you. But we have become increasingly aware that there has been a weakness in the teaching that we can deliver through that master's course, and that really is how we've been teaching immersive sound. At UWE Bristol, we are relatively well known for our technical expertise in film and television, and there are some fantastic people within the team who are industry-leading experts in sound design for flat media. But before the Train the Trainer programme came along, it's safe to say that we didn't really have a meaningful way to connect the dots, and our teaching of spatial audio just wasn't where we wanted it to be. We knew when we read the StoryFutures report a couple of years ago that there was an identified sector-wide need for more skills in this area, and that we had an opportunity with this Train the Trainer programme to really dive deep into the creative practice of immersive audio design. And like all the other teams, I'd like to really thank everyone involved in StoryFutures and the Train the Trainer programme for giving us this opportunity. I would like to start with a clip from one of the industry experts that we've been working with, and that's Tanuja Amarasuriya from Sleep Dogs. She's been supporting us throughout this process, and I think she's best to set the scene.
In my company, Sleep Dogs, we love to use sound as a world-building tool. And because we're often creating fictional worlds, believability is a really important factor. And that's not just about what makes up the sound environment. It's also about the tone, the textures, the position of the sounds. An awful lot of what's traditionally considered good audio production is concerned with clarity and balance. But in our real-world experience, sound is often distorted and unclear. We're always hearing things through background noise. People don't tend to talk with perfect diction all the time. So if everything is crystal clear and balanced, it doesn't feel real. It's actually those distortions and artifacts that make for a more convincing sound world. As an exercise, just take a listen. Find somewhere to stand, close your eyes, and spend 2 full minutes really listening. What do you hear? What are the details and layers of this sound environment? How do they move? How do they change? Because sometimes it's the background sounds that we normally tune out which actually make for the most convincing sound world.
I'd like to invite you for just a moment to listen and tune into your own surroundings. We're all doing something slightly strange right now. It's a sort of a sonically peculiar way that we're communicating, in that we're having a shared collective experience over Zoom, but most of what we're individually hearing is really particular to our own circumstances. I don't know if your washing machine is on. I don't know what your dog is barking at. I don't know what the builders are doing on your neighbour's roof. All of your acoustic environment is still particular to you because you're muted and I'm not. And my acoustic environment is spilling into your space, as will yours if you unmute. I really enjoy the moments in these sessions where people accidentally unmute or their kids unmute for them, and we start to hear the kind of cacophony of our different spaces and remember that we're not together, but we are. This is an example of what another of our industry experts, Duncan Speakman's been talking about around schizophonic sound, which is something he's been sharing with our students. This dislocation and layering of sound that can be dislocated across time, across space, and is a really kind of vital way that we can consider using sound to extend our realities. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we get to that, let me introduce you quickly to our team. We have a fantastic team who are from across 2 different faculties within the University of West of England. We're from the arts faculty and the engineering and technology faculties broadly. And we've been kind of using this as an opportunity to flush out all of the interesting people who are trying to make strides in this area, to combine our own understanding, to couple that with what we've been learning within this program, and to reach out to external experts like Tanuja and Duncan to help to support our understanding. What we've been doing in this time is convening on multiple occasions as a whole team. We've obviously been taking part in the fantastic train-the-trainer workshops. Cannot speak highly enough. If anyone in the audience is thinking of doing this, do. So we've been learning from our industry experts, from our incredible mentors. We also have been meeting regularly as a group to examine some of the questions at the heart of this. What are the threshold concepts? What's the pedagogical approach we can take? Who are our creative inspirations, and some pragmatic stuff about what tools, what technologies, what technical workflows can we realistically teach that are not going to become obsolete by the time the students graduate. This has been discussed before. So we pulled together everything that we learned, and we put together a series of pilot workshops with our master's students from the Virtual and Extended Realities course, and that was led by Senior Technical Instructor Neil Sherman. So the approach to this was one of action learning. We very much took on board a lot of advice that suggested that the best thing we could do for our students is give them some guidance, but then give them access to equipment and set some quick challenges that encourage them to get in the field really early. So our students gathered samples from a range of different sources across the city and in our sort of Foley and sound production studios. And they gathered dialogue, they gathered Atmos, they gathered effects, and then we introduced them to a digital audio workstation called Reaper and gave them the opportunity to experiment with what they'd captured, find out what worked, find out what didn't work, and really focused on creating an audio-only immersive experience in just a matter of hours. We've also noticed that by being able to tool up as a team, we've been able to extend some of those new tools like ambisonic microphones, like binaural capture kits, to the students. We're very much of the school of thought that academic kit should not sit in an academic cupboard gathering dust. So we've been encouraging the students to borrow it from us and go out and do what they choose in the world. And in the first week, actually, since those workshops, we had students doing 360 recordings with camera and with audio in live gig environments. We've had students picked up by Bristol Beacon, which is formerly Colston Hall concert venue, to commission an original piece of immersive audio for their relaunch in the autumn. We've kind of found that if you can unlock and unconstrain some of these facilities and let the students run with it, they really kind of bring a lot to the table. And then lastly, I guess we've been doing is trying to see if we can take some of the wisdom that we've been learning as trainers from this process and from our industry experts particularly, and seek to try and bottle it for the students current and future. So we've been creating some mini masterclass videos with our industry experts, it's Duncan Speakman and Tanuja Amarsurya, Duncan did a piece on augmented audio, and Nuja created something around experiential encounters for us. I will pop some links to those videos in the chat after this presentation, because they are freely available for you to enjoy and to share within your own teaching if you wish. For us, it gives us an opportunity to share content, but more importantly, to create kind of teaching materials that can also be used asymmetrically in kind of online teaching environments across different programs. I'm going to give you a little flavour of the piece that Duncan gave, because I think it kind of paints a picture of how we're pitching this kind of content.
So while it does create complexity, the ability to merge two places through sound is also really exciting. By using transparent listening systems where the audience can hear both their immediate surroundings and the recorded sound, we allow them to not just be in two places at the same moment, but maybe even two different times.
So, quick view to the future. What about now? We are cooking this teaching into our ongoing programme for the master's course. It's going to sit really strongly in a practical experimentation module at the very beginning of our master's course to give people those tools early on. But we're also using it to develop new curriculum for our undergraduates, and we're looking to create modules that sit across multiple programmes, looking likely to include at least filmmaking, games technology, animation, drama and architecture at the moment, although it might expand further. We've noticed that this programme and the funding associated with it has also given a lot of confidence to our exec team. And in recent meetings, we've discovered that it's really raised the ambition for the execs in terms of how they articulate the university's expertise and the ambition that they have to really now kind of inculcate this idea of UE as an expert in the sector. So there's an emboldening management tool that is perhaps under-discussed in this space. But as a team, we are going to keep learning, we're going to keep building, and of course, we're going to make a lot more noise. And we really look forward to speaking to you all in the Q&A. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Verity. God, loads of really interesting, I've got loads of questions for you afterwards, and I'm sure other people have too. So, but just before we go on to that, we are going to hear from the Manchester Metropolitan University team. And they have a pre-record, so take it away, Lauren.
Hi, my name's David Jackson. I'm a researcher and lecturer at the School of Digital Arts at Manchester Metropolitan University.
Hi, I'm Marcia Kearney, and I'm a senior research assistant at the School of Digital Arts at Manchester Metropolitan University.
Hi, I'm Hayley Walsh, and I'm a lecturer also at the School of Digital Arts at Manchester Metropolitan University.
So the question we wanted to ask with students was, how might we use genre and sound tracking to find new ways of challenging notions of immersion and distance within expanded documentary environments?
So the way we did this was by positioning our research question within the story world of Acoustic Kitty, which is a research project in SODA that engages themes of expanded documentary and acoustic surveillance, and which covers real and imagined incidences of covert listening which start in the 1930s with Lennon Theremin. Its namesake comes from a declassified CIA project from the 1960s, in what was reportedly a $20 million project where the CIA attempt to train a cat to spy on the Kremlin and Soviet embassies. A veterinary surgeon implants a microphone into a cat's ear canal and a radio transmitter into the base of its skull. Once this surgery is complete, Acoustic Kitty was sent out on its first mission, where it would eavesdrop on employees and visitors of the Soviet embassy in Washington, DC. It's here on this mission that the cat almost immediately gets struck by a taxi, with conflicting reports on whether the cat died or lived a long and happy life thereafter. We brought students into this part of the story world through a series of creative, technical and ideation workshops. where we asked them to imagine different versions of Acoustic Kitty's accident using genre and spatialised audio.
Students were led through some of the basics of film genre classification, including tropes, subgenres, and the grammar associated with film soundtracking, as it reinforces the frame and results in distance between the audience and the work. Using generic conventions from film to help understand and experiment with immersive spaces gave students a familiar foothold into immersive ideation. The frame isn't present in immersive audio, so the storyboarding process meant that we needed to transition students from that familiar film grammar into thinking with their eyes closed and focusing on hearing as the exclusive storytelling sense. A mindfulness exercise, sound maps, and Barry Adamson's masterclass helped give students the tools to plan and execute an audio prototype in either Unity or Audio Orchestrator. By the end of the lessons, students reported that they were listening differently in their own lives and that they had newfound insight into storytelling through soundtracking.
Over the course of the research project, students worked as co-researchers in small teams. Each team went through all of the creative, technical, and ideation workshops, using methodologies and immersive tools to create a 1-minute immersive audio prototype. Here's a soundbite from Group 2.
It's the 1960s, and the FBI have coordinated a plan to spy on the Soviets. We're in Washington, D.C., and they've augmented a cat's hearing for the purposes of spying. These are the last event before the cat's death.
Oh my God, the cat. I can't believe this happened. It's 25
So we used Unity to create audio environments that would allow users to interact with the sounds, whether that be dialogue or soundtracks themselves, through movement in the virtual space. We also experimented with BBC R&D team's Audio Orchestrator. The Audio Orchestrator tool allows makers to create surround sound environments using household mobile devices as speakers, effectively spatializing the sound in the real world. By moving between these tools, we felt that students could really get to explore the creative implications of spatialized audio more easily and be less focused on any particular spatialization tool. The Train the Trainer scheme has really helped us to kind of accelerate our approach to immersive audio and spatialized audio, and that's been down in no small part to the excellent workshops that have been put on, the support from staff at Royal Holloway and at National Film and Television School, and the excellent roster of mentors from industry also who've really been inspiring and informative and very generous in the way that they worked with us.
As part of the Train the Trainer project, we were also able to test the teaching delivery of a new 15-credit, cross-level and multidisciplinary optional unit in SODA called the Collabs. Learning and content from the Train the Trainers project is now being adapted for the storytelling thematic in the Collab unit. It has also helped to inform decisions and thinking around immersive media production challenges within the Collab and their curriculum design. The opportunity to test this unit's teaching delivery is of massive value, and it's helped us so much on the preparation towards our first Collab delivery in November 2021. So on behalf of myself and the team here at SODA, we'd like to give a massive thank you to the Train the Trainers programme and the StoryFutures Academy for making our project possible.
Thanks very much, Hayley. So if we can bring Hayley and Verity into the centre. Just so Verity, I had loads of questions, but the first one I wanted to just ask about was about the industry collaboration and how important that was. It's definitely something that's sort of come through from all of the reports. And as I said, you know, Amanda had mentioned that actually that was a sort of deliberate strategy on the part of StoryFutures, you know, before I came on board. So yeah, how important was that industry collaboration for your team?
I think, yeah, it just wouldn't have been anything like the same without it, I think. So it was brilliant to be able to, from our kind of first like brainstorming team meeting, to have our industry collaborators with us. We didn't kind of like prep ourselves and then go and get some consultancy. We were able to bring them in as kind of formative members of the team. So when we were trying to work out what we could do, what we wanted to do, what was a terrible idea, we could get not just the kind of academic perspectives from what we already knew, but some really brilliant provocations about how anything that we did in this kind of teaching context would make would be not just be appropriate for the sector, but actually would be able to make transformations within the sector. I think it's really a privilege to be working in immersive education right now, because it's not so sort of inculcated and formed that our students have to learn how to shape to that. They're the shapers of the industry when they leave us. And so we were really keen with this and others to work with people who are real kind of pioneers in the sector, who are kind of provocateurs and who will call us to account when we do something really dry, to say, actually, you know, if you want to make change, or this is where we see the potential for change, then this is how you empower the students to do so. And yeah, we're working with industry experts who also have a really strong sense of what the sort of, I kind of dislike the word talent pipeline. It sounds really mechanistic, but that thing about kind of developing skills that will be beneficial to you when you're in a position of influence. So yeah, I think we would be in a very different place if we hadn't had that. But also I would, you know, I know it's been said a lot, but I really want to stress how transformative it was coming to some of the StoryFutures workshops and speaking to the likes of Kimberly and Claire and going through sort of punch-drunk workshops, and then being able to kind of ingest that back into the process. Those kind of catalysts from industry really stopped us from kind of thinking too practically about the what, and helped us to think more about the why.
And Hayley, I'm just looking at your sort of the final slide there in your presentation about the collabs and that sort of, you know, you're doing, you know, cross disciplines, but also, you know, across, you know, levels, educational levels as well. How do you guys, how difficult was it to sort of come up with assessments that could be, that would be relevant and that would be, you know, adjusted to according to the different sort of academic levels, whether it's undergraduate or postgrad?
Yeah, I mean, the assessment criteria really has been brought down to a reflective portfolio and journal piece, and that's from a team perspective, but also an individual perspective. So the assessment criteria will be the same for all levels, but our learning outcomes vary slightly depending on the thematics. And so in the work that we've shown here, of course, that was done with a cohort that aren't SODA students because we're not open yet, but that they followed a similar assessment criteria, and it's proven effective within the RISE programme that we worked in terms of learning outcomes and across all those levels. And, you know, in year one, we'll have 480 students in this unit, 120 specifically within the thematic area. That is going to be, should we say, interesting in terms of, you know, making sure that academic teams can manage that multidisciplinary workload that will come with assessment. But in kind of its short, we've made sure that the three learning outcomes are kind of, you know, very unique to some of the attributes of the collabs, which is all around collaboration and transdisciplinarity and that use of technical and creative skills. So there are some shared commonalities within learning outcomes across the level 4 to 7, but that they level up each, of course, with each year.
Cool. And both of you, so I was really intrigued about the fact that you both sort of focused on audio, obviously, and, you know, Verity, as I said in the chat, I mean, I'm such a massive fan of immersive audio, and as a director myself, just having that tool to sort of add to my toolbox is a really massive part of my teaching, you know, and sort of introducing immersive production to my students. But even just watching your video, I was like, oh my God, I always think about mixed reality as visual really more than audio. So that was really interesting. So yeah, just tell me, why did you choose sound specifically? What was it about audio? I'd love to hear from both of you about that.
Sure. I mean, I guess one of the sort of things to share about the process we've been through is, I think when we spoke about, when we initially pitched the idea, we always imagined we would be doing it as a sort of a one of the sensory dynamics in an immersive storytelling environment, and that it would be about kind of how to map sound in Unity or in Unreal, and it would be about how you kind of like respond to visual cues sonically. So we always imagined it was going to be an audio visual environment rather than sound only. And I think one of the things that we took quite a strong position on in the end was saying that for this specific focus, that actually removing the visual, that encouraging the students to think about sound as a mixed reality tool, as you say, and to think about the layering of sound onto real world sounds, like that's enough for them, and that anything else was going to kind of muddy the waters. And we, you know, so, as I'm sure many in the room will attest, many of the most like transformative immersive experiences we've witnessed in the last 5 years or so have been audio only, and that ability to kind of continue the relationship with the world while you listen is really vital. So we chose quite deliberately to, I think I said in the report, like there's no better way to teach world building than taking the world building tools away. We deliberately chose for this to not let them do that, so that they had no choice but to think in terms of how they do world building and story crafting just with the audio. And I think we'll certainly stick to our guns on that one. There is then like a next step that needs to happen about how you translate that into those multisensory environments, and that's kind of the next job for us, is that now we need to take some of those first principles of sonic experiences and spatial audio and kind of translate that learning into the more visual stuff that they're doing in their practical work. But I would there's a piece at the end of Tanuja's mini masterclass where she really strongly advocates for always starting with sound, no matter what your other tool sets are. Start with sound, especially with VR, and then kind of work out visuals from there. And I'm taking that on as a personal mission.
Yeah, brilliant. And Hayley, tell us a bit more about Acoustic Kitty, which is just a fantastic story, full stop.
Yeah, it is a strange story world in some ways, and obviously part real. And as mentioned, it's been a research project in SODA, predominantly between my other 3 team members. And the ambition really for that story world is to, of course, bring students into it, but not just from the, from the sense of film or animation, and how do you create a story world whereby we're coming at it from different angles. There's a wider backstory and treatment on the kitty being an AI that is able to listen both into the future and into the past, and it's through the notion of this listening that it starts to create characters and chapters using genre and sound. So that connection back to genre and sound tracking was really key. And so for this particular project, using audio only was really it was really right to focus on sound. And I think what we learn is that, you know, we have traditional storytellers coming into the school and currently in the media department, and their natural default is to look at story from a visual perspective, to develop story in that possibly more linear and visual way. And this opportunity kind of really exploded that when we took, you know, the point of viewing away and made it the point of listening, and what happens when you have to create a story that is purely just based on sound. So using the notion of sound tracking and genre helped to create a narrative, rather than, you know, discussions with Claire, you know, what's the golden thread? How do you create that story when you don't have a visual world to direct you? And so for us, whilst we didn't go really heavily into the technical end of immersive audio, which with the school opening with the sound and music department in it, or school program in it, we now have expertise in that. So it's, you know, there's a pipeline and direction there, but from a storytelling perspective, how do we start crafting those tools and you know, enabling students who are traditional storytellers to start thinking it from sound first, telling stories from a sound first perspective. So yeah, it was really kind of an amazing moment where students started, and not too dissimilar from yourself, Verity, taking students on deep listening exercises and watching them kind of expand their thinking and also consciousness in some aspects of how do I tell this 1 minute story in a sound where I've got a sonic environment where many things are happening, and how do I cut from one aspect of the story to another. And there was all manner of talks on, you would have heard the transistor radio in that sound clip being the way that you flitted between genres and therefore characters and parts of the story. And so sound kind of, yeah, in this experience, or this 6-week experience, exploded the narrative a little bit for us, and how you took audiences on that golden thread that Claire so kind of rightly directed us towards.
Yeah, thanks, Hayley. So I can see Amanda, you've got your hand up. Do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I just want to say first of all, what brilliant kind of projects. They're so exciting. I love seeing it. I was always excited about Acoustic Kitty and yours, Verity. But just, I suppose, just say really encouraged by the success that you guys have seen or felt with the level of collaboration of, you know, it was always a kind of ambition, I guess, to have a systematized approach in innovation to that kind of knowledge exchange where, you know, kind of creative industry, you know, your creative industry collaborators working with yourselves in sort of much more R&D innovative approach. So just to feel like, to hear you guys saying that's been so successful, that kind of knowledge exchange transfer, which is hugely important and is definitely on this sort of political agenda. So just want to say it's great to hear it. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. Right. Big congratulations to you two, to both of your teams. Again, just amazing results, both for the projects themselves, but also obviously the future learning. And I just wanted to give the Zoom to James Bennett for a little to sort of just give his thoughts really on what he's heard today and what he's thinking about the programme so far.
Thanks so much, Mary. I guess I'll try and keep this very short and sweet, because we've all been on Zoom a long time. I wanted to start by saying a few thanks, in particular to all the teams who've undertaken the Train the Trainer challenge. And it is a challenge that you've all set out in different ways, but what's really clear across all of the projects that you've been involved in is both the energy and enthusiasm you brought to it. And it's fantastic to see, in particular, like people like Verity and John and all of you bringing research into students' learning, you know, and how giving you that space to work in that way has been hopefully really beneficial to your institution. So that is really exciting. the other thing that really comes through is like how collaborative and interdisciplinary you all are, like whether you're building on links that you've already had in the university, or this has been a chance to try and build those links. I think that's been tremendously exciting. I'll come back to that point, but that, you know, really stood out about, you know, we've got so many different teams working from so many different areas. It's exactly what we need to do when we set up the Train the Trainer program, is facilitate that kind of interdisciplinary connections. I also want to thank our incredible team of mentors. I won't list you all here, but I think all of your teams have thanked you, all of the projects have thanked you. And it's so crucial that we have that industry connection to what you're delivering and ensuring that we stay relevant with what we're delivering. So those two things are really important. I want to thank our team, Grace and Lauren, who've been pulling all of this together constantly, week after week. And to Mary for leading and bringing all of this together. Thank you so much for the hard work that's involved. And of course to Amanda in kind of like having really taken that Train the Trainer initiative and made it into such an exciting program. Hopefully that wasn't too Oscar speechy. So let me just reflect a little bit on where we've come from and where we're going to. So Train the Trainer program was set up by StoryFutures Academy to build a pipeline, and it was really interesting. I think Verity, you kind of like mentioned, you know, it's a funny word to use. Worked quite well for getting the funding, but it is a funny word to use because one of the things that's really clear from today is like how amorphous that pipeline might be, particularly in this emergent and open sector. And it's not linear, and it is circuitous. So I think what has become clear listening to you all today is that it's a network. You know, it's a network of trainers and of talent development that we're building across the UK. And that network of trainers is really significant, that we're able to make sure that you all stay connected with cohort 1 and the cohort that you all are together. In order for us to develop what we're aiming to do, which is make the UK the most skilled in the world in creating immersive experiences and using immersive production technologies. So that network, I think, is really crucial. And our job really is to make sure that we can ensure that you maintain connection with each other and to the industry collaborators that have built this project with you. To that end, I want to just mention a couple of things that we're doing in the next 3 to 6 months. So we will be running the next round of our skills report that led to this Train the Trainer initiative. We're going to do that in 2 phases. In November, we'll be launching an interim report around virtual production skills. That's going to be November 4th. Hopefully we're all back in the real world then. So we'll have to like actually use virtual technologies to make it feel a bit more Zoom-like maybe. We'll create a virtual Zoom room. So November 4th, we're going to launch the second round of our skills research. And that's an interim report that will then build into something that we launch fully in late winter, early spring. At that point, in the late winter, early spring, we'll be running a really exciting initiative that Amanda will be leading on for early career researchers. We've run over the past 2 years professional placements for industry to go and work from linear disciplines and bring that knowledge into the immersive sector. We're now going to extend that scheme to early career researchers to take academic research and put those into industry so that we continue to build that bridge between university and industry, and to make, in particular, we'll be looking to support companies who are building R&D collaborations. So particularly people looking to build Innovate UK applications and wanting to work with researchers and harness the brilliant research work that goes on inside the universities. So that'll be, we'll make further announcements this autumn, but it'll launch late winter, early spring. And I think, you know, one of the crucial parts of that will be to really continue to build on the STEM to STEAM agenda. A particular thank you to the team working with Queen Mary, University of London. I think it's been really exciting to have you as part of the collaboration and to deeper for mentoring you. I think it's been really exciting for us when we decided to go down that route and have you as part of the team. Really exciting to kind of like make sure that we enable STEM to benefit from the arts and humanities, and how urgent that is as we all sort of face this change in government funding around arts and humanities courses in the UK. Let me end as I pass back to Mary on this notion of unicorns. I think the most exciting thing that comes out today is the fact that if we all work together in this way, if we all work together interdisciplinary to share those knowledges with our students, then we won't be making unicorns. We'll be making kind of like well-rounded individuals who are not unique anymore, but are part of an ecosystem that can collaborate and thrive together. And the key part of that is that collaboration. If we teach people the skills that they need to collaborate with each other and understand the other disciplines, that's how we really become world leaders in this space. So thank you very much for helping us build that network of talent, that interdisciplinary group. And I'll hand back to Mary.
Thanks, James. I like Verity's suggestion that we're training zebras rather than unicorns. I just wanted to add my thanks on behalf of myself and also Amanda, just to everybody, to the mentors, to you guys, the teams themselves. Thank you so much for trying to come in under 10 minutes. That was probably the biggest challenge of the whole project for you guys, and you pretty much all did it. So I really appreciate that. Personally, I feel like it's a real privilege as a sort of new academic to be kind of at this coalface of the industry, but also of academic teaching. So, thank you all for your generosity and your sharing. We'll be sharing the reports. You guys must, continue to sort of collaborate, as James says, for us to continue this network. And I think that's it. Lauren's got some of the social tags that you guys, please feel free to sort of tag everything if you're doing some social media around this. And Lauren is saying that you'll receive an email later with more information about all the projects. So thank you so much. We'll be doing a Train the Trainer 3 in the new year. And as I said, I'll be in touch with all of you as well about pulling together a proper report from the findings of both of the cohorts. So thank you again to everybody, and go off and enjoy your holidays. Sadly, not such a sunny day for any of us probably right now. But thanks very much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.